polls in the South Carolina primary are still open, but the clock is ticking.
We'll be covering all the excitement right here on The Nation Decides.
This is NTD's The Nation Decides 2024 with Steve Lance and Tiffany Meier.
And the South Carolina Republican primary is finally here.
Will Nikki Haley defy the odds, or will Donald Trump win big?
This is The Nation Decides. I'm Steve Lance.
And I'm Tiffany Meier.
And we've got less than an hour before the polls close, and we'll dig into all of the data as soon as it comes in. With us here at the desk is Jason Meister, Republican strategist and former Trump Advisory Board member, and David Carlucci, Democratic strategist and former Democratic state senator in the state of New York. Thank you both for coming on.
And before we start our discussion, let's go to NTD's Iris Tao, who's been following former President Trump in South Carolina. She's at his watch party right now. What's the atmosphere like over there, Iris?
Good evening to you all. And yes, we're at Trump's watch party, where Trump is expected to give a speech here right after results become clear, perhaps soon after 7 o'clock Eastern time. And right now, the guests are filling up this room with music playing. The back is a pretty excited atmosphere here. For dozens of outlets here, of course, swamping this riser here, waiting for Trump to come out. And while we're waiting for Trump's speech, let's hear from a few voters here in South Carolina that we interviewed out of the polling sites nearby to hear what they supported and why. Watch. Who did you vote for and why?
I voted for Nikki Haley. Being a girl, I really like a fresh perspective. Again, like, we had Trump in office. I don't think it was the best. We have Biden in office. I don't think it's the best. So just a new perspective. And I really like her experience, as she used to be like the U.S. UN ambassador. So.
We voted for Nikki. Yeah, because the other option was the orange guy, you know, the paint of orange. And I don't like that. I think he should be natural. So I vote for Nikki Haley because she's more elegant.
Well, I'm going to be voting for Trump, and I just love everything he did. My father unfortunately passed away in 2021, and one of the biggest things that my family was impacted by was the death tax, unfortunately. Under Trump's administration, he completely removed that, and then as soon as Biden took office, that was reinstated. So that hit home and deeply affected my family.
Would you call on Nikki Haley to drop out at this point?
I don't know if I would call on her to drop out. I have met her before, just in passing, and I think she's lovely. I think some of her policies I definitely agree with, but I'm just a Trump supporter through and through. He just, like I said, he hits home with me personally.
So as we heard from the interview, Nikki Haley, despite her not doing well in the polls, does have supporters here in her home state. Meanwhile, according to early results from NBC's exit polls today, about 70% of those voted today say they're Republicans, while about a quarter say they're independents or Democrats. Well, of course, we have to wait until more results to come out to see how many non-Republican voters actually voted in today's primary. But we have heard Trump, for example, just last night at one of the rallies here in South Carolina, saying that he wants to win by a margin that people have never seen before, and basically to overwhelm any external factors in this primary or election. So a lot to watch for in the coming hours while we wait for Trump to speak at this watch party. Back to you.
Iris, thank you so much, and we'll be coming back to you quite soon.
And now let's bring in our panel, Republican strategist Jason Meister and Democratic strategist David Carlucci. It's great to have you both here. This race for nominee is basically over to many. It's hard for any of us to really see a path to victory for Nikki Haley when the vast majority of Republicans have already started to coalesce behind former President Trump. Despite that, Haley's staying in the race. You know, we saw a few voters there coming out of the polls, you know, the exit poll there, voting for her. Do you see any actual path, Jason, to victory for Nikki?
I don't. I think this primary has been over for quite some time. I was looking at the exit polls before we came into the studio tonight, and I see that 6 in 10 voters do not support Ukraine aid. A vast majority of the voters made their decision prior to January, and that breaks heavily to Trump. Look, I think she's only staying in this race right now to prevent Donald Trump from receiving RNC funds to go after Joe Biden in a general election. She's also preventing him from receiving White House briefings as the presumptive Republican nominee. So she was endorsed yesterday by Gavin Newsom, as you know. I think her whole campaign is being run and funded by Democrats. I don't think she has any path forward.
David, I think having a Democrat's perspective in this, because you guys technically don't have a horse in this race, how are you viewing this?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for Nikki to stay in the race. You got 1,215 delegates that you need. It's still a long way to the convention in Milwaukee on July 15th, so anything can happen. We all know, a day is a long time in politics, let alone months. And remember, after South Carolina, which is actually an open primary, meaning Democrats can vote. I called my in-laws earlier today to make sure they were voting. They said that they were. They're Democrats originally from New York, but they're down there in South Carolina. But next is Michigan. That's an open primary state. We have 11 out of the next 15 primaries that are happening that are either open or semi-opening, meaning that Democrats, independents can vote in those primaries. And I think what we're seeing is, yes, Donald Trump has galvanized the Republican base, right? The hardcore right-wing base. And that's very important to win a primary. But moving into the general, what we've seen out of Iowa, out of New Hampshire, is that we see many of the independents and more moderate voters are just not going to Donald Trump. So I think it's more of a sign of not Nikki Haley's doing great, but Donald Trump has a lot of work to do, not necessarily to win the Republican nomination. He's got to keep going as he is. But if this is any sign of what's ahead in the general, I think it's bad news for Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, nationally right now, in terms of independent voters, you do see Nikki Haley getting the vast majority of that. Pardon me, Donald Trump getting the vast majority of independents.
Actually, on that note of South Carolina being an open primary, only 4% of Democrats came out to vote in the Democratic primary for President Biden. Could we actually see the rest of them come out and do a surprise vote for Nikki Haley? How is she doing with the Democratic base?
Well, I think, yeah, it's more exciting, the Republican primary, obviously. February 3rd, we saw about 150,000 people vote in the primary on February 3rd. But what was interesting there was Dean Phillips is on the ballot. He's campaigning. And Joe Biden still got 96% of the vote. I know, as someone that's run for office before, getting 96% of the vote of any election is very hard, especially when you have people campaigning against you, and especially when there's all this polling showing about excitement is not that great behind Joe Biden. Then he comes in, and the only thing that we can actually measure in real results, and he kicks butt. So I think there's a lot of excitement behind Joe Biden, and maybe it's not him as a candidate, but it's, hey, we're afraid of the opposition, and we're going to rally behind Joe Biden. So I think that primary on February 3rd, the Democratic primary, really showed that Democrats are lockstep behind Joe Biden, whereas Republicans are still fighting it out, and many would like to presume Donald Trump, he's done it, but he hasn't. Nikki Haley got 43% of the vote in New Hampshire, so he's got a lot of work to do.
But look, Nikki Haley lost 148 of 151 counties so far. There is absolutely no path. She is a neocon globalist who is backed by the CIA, she supports the CCP. Major Democrats are endorsing her. If she has a very large Democrat vote tonight, I think that's a death knell to her campaign. That's a huge sign to the Republican Party that this is a Democrat operation, a Democrat campaign funded by Democrats just to impede Donald Trump.
Jason, on the note of Nikki Haley, she's changed her tune a bit when it comes to South Carolina. She used to talk about predicting a victory there, her sweet home state. Now she has talked about how far she's come, saying, look, there used to be 14 candidates or fellas, and now she just has one fella left to catch up with. Trump doesn't seem to think that much about that. On the Fox town hall, he said he would win bigly. What are your predictions tonight?
I think she's going to lose significantly. I don't think she's going to drop out of the race because, again, she's being funded by Democrats, and that's the whole goal here. But look, life is about expectations. Nikki Haley is resetting expectations tonight because she knows she's going to lose in her home state. And I think that that's a big sign to the Republican base. We need to move on from Nikki Haley. We need to put Donald Trump up against Joe Biden and win this thing. He needs to be the 47th president of the United States.
If I could just add to that, I think the expectation should be higher on Donald Trump. Look, this is a former president. This is almost like an incumbent president running for re-election. And when we have those comparisons, we see those candidates doing far better than Donald Trump has so far in this race. So I think the expectations, yes, Nikki Haley was the governor of South Carolina, but this was the former president of the United States. And the fact that we're talking about that he would not be more than 20 points ahead, I think is extremely alarming and should be to Republicans. And the fact that she's doing better with moderates, with independents, with Democrats, that's what you got to do to win the general election. So if it's about winning the primary, that's one thing. But if we're looking at what really matters, the general election, I think we're looking at all these fatal signs of the Trump campaign weakening as it gets closer to November.
I'd like to address that one point. I think that it's important to understand this is not a traditional election cycle. We have Democrats using Marxist tactics to go after Donald Trump with lawfare in Georgia, in New York, et cetera. You saw this decision in New York recently where he's getting fined $355 million for doing what developers do in every city, in every single state. Now, when you talk about moderate Democrats and you talk about independent voters, I think that those voters are watching what's happening to Donald Trump right now, and they're saying that is totally un-American. That is not how we run elections in this country, and it's not how we want our rule of law and the country to decide who's going to be on the ballot, et cetera. So I think that that's a huge factor when we talk about moderates and independents.
And to one of Jason's previous points, David, when it comes to it's not traditional to see Democrats crossing party lines to vote or Republicans. And we're seeing this also in Michigan, an effort for Democrats to send a message to President Biden. This just seems like a new era of politics that we're in. And, is this kind of a slippery slope?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is all unprecedented, right? We have we expect the unexpected. But yeah, I think you see what's happening in Michigan. You have some Democrats that are trying to send a message. And I was talking about this recently with a friend in terms of, yes, that's a message they're trying to send about Biden's handling of what's going on in Gaza, in Israel. And they're not going to vote for Donald Trump, I guess is the point I'm trying to make, that they might be trying to send a message in this primary. But when push comes to shove, when they're forced with a Biden versus Trump, they're going to come home to Joe Biden. So I think this is all about tactics and trying to, flex your muscle to get the president to try to do something, but it's not going to affect the outcome of the election in November.
And despite the slew of criminal charges looming over the former president, he's been very successful at solidifying his base. Let's take a look at this Meier poll here, if we could, and discuss this. It looks like he's keeping most of his support, even if he wasn't convicted. Just a few points off from Republicans and independents. How might a criminal conviction affect the support for former President Trump?
Look, I think the lawfare and the criminality is a rocket fuel, political rocket fuel for Donald Trump. He goes up in the polls every single time one of these decisions come out. You see the Georgia case is a complete mockery of our rule of law in the courtroom. Same thing with New York and Letitia James's case. So I don't think that stuff has any impact and negatively on Donald Trump. I think if anything, he's embracing it and he's saying, I'm a martyr. I'm a political martyr. They can't beat me at the ballot box, so they have to take me to court with these bogus charges, these hoaxes, and I think it really, in the end, helps Donald Trump significantly.
Yeah, I would just say to that I think that as we get closer and we see that the former president actually is probably going to stand trial come March 25th, that it's not just about these allegations. Now we see jurors, we see judges handing down decisions, and some might say, oh, they're victimless crimes. Well, I don't think so. I think that when you have someone like Donald Trump that is making a mockery of the financial institutions, basically committing fraud to get more favorable benefits to him, that sends a real signal to, I think, the American people at large to say, wait, we're not above the law. The president shouldn't be above the law. But Donald Trump is doing that at every turn. He's saying, I am above the law. I deserve immunity on every single case, carte blanche across the board, and then making comparisons to himself and Navalny, saying that he's a martyr and that the United States is worse than Russia in those comparisons. I think the more and more he talks and people hear him, they're really outraged to say, wait, is this about you as a person or is this about our country? And I think the more we dig into these trials, yes, it might be red meat for the Republican base, but it's lima beans to moderates and independents.
If I might address that for one moment. I actually do think that if you listen to what President Trump's saying, he is telling the truth, and in that he is being abused in the court of law, and they're essentially destroying our rule of law. So yes, actually, in many ways, Donald Trump's success in the courtrooms is directly tied to the success of our nation and the fabric of our nation. The fabric of our nation is being ripped apart by Democrats just because they can't beat him in the general election, and they know it. They're petrified.
They have beat him in the general election.
We're going to get back to this discussion.
I don't believe that they did, actually.
We're going to get back to this discussion
I don't
in just
think
a
South
moment.
Carolina did either.
Right now, first, we're going to go to NTD's Jack Bradley, who was at CPAC earlier today covering former President Trump's speech. He's also had a chance to interview his press secretary while there. Let's go to that now. And we're going to go back to, we're going to check in with Jack in just a moment right now. But first, our special coverage of the South Carolina primary is just getting started. When we return, Data Hub 2024 with NTD's Dave Martin breaking down voted data for us. That and more when we return.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
And we're back with more of our special coverage of the South Carolina Republican primary on NTD's The Nation Decides 2024. I'm Steve Lance.
And I'm Tiffany Meier, and here with us is NTD's Dave Martin, who's going to have a lot prepared for us tonight. And according to my sources, it won't be sports related. Is that right, Dave?
Unfortunately not, but I'm excited for this election stuff, though.
All right, so what do you have prepared for us?
I've got plenty for you, too. Let's go to the touch screen right over here. Now, this is a map of the 2016 South Carolina Republican primary. They did not have one in 2020 because Trump was a sitting president. As you can see here, Donald Trump, he finished first, 32.5%. Marco Rubio was second at 22.5%. Actually, Ted Cruz was right behind him at 22%. Now, right over here, if you can see all these lines here, here is a map of South Carolina. 46 counties over here. All of this red here, these are all Trump wins. He took 44 of the 46 counties. These two pink ones here, these were Marco Rubio wins. These were by a narrow margin. And actually, these two counties, they have something in common. These two have the highest percentages of college-educated people over the age of 25 in the state. Now, actually, the third highest is Greenville right up here, which is actually the most populous county. But that's in the north. The north area is a little different. The north area is more conservative. You have a lot more evangelicals up here. As you get further east, you start having more college-educated people in those counties, in those cities, I should say. Rubio actually was a lot closer to Trump in those. Now, Rubio in 2016, he actually favors very similarly to Nikki Haley. You know, they both emerged from the Tea Party movement. Haley actually endorsed Rubio in 2016. Both have actually very fiscally conservative views, you know, both in favor of lowering taxes, cutting government spending, including even Social Security. Both also have, you know, similar foreign policies, you know, more confrontational to certain world leaders like Vladimir Putin. Trump, meanwhile, he's more about, you know, negotiating peace through strength and respect. Now, another thing that we've mentioned, I think it's already been mentioned tonight, is this is an open primary tonight. South Carolina has an open primary, which means anyone who didn't vote in the Democratic primary can come and cast a ballot here. Now, it'll be very interesting because they got a very low turnout in the Democratic primary earlier this month. Only 4% showed up. Will some of those people come in, and who will they vote for in this GOP primary? If they do, it could be some disaffected voters there. You never know. That's something interesting we'll be watching out for. For right now, let's go back to the desk.
Thanks, Dave. We'll be coming back to you soon enough.
And back to our panel now, Republican strategist Jason Meister and Democratic strategist David Carlucci. Let's talk about the issue, guys, of electability. Multiple general election polls have Trump and Biden neck and neck. Haley's trying to use this to her advantage as she's got an edge over Biden in a few polls out there. Here's a clip of Haley raising this up.
But look at any of the polls. You look at that and you see he can't win a general election. And if he keeps talking like this and he keeps spending $50 million of his campaign dollars on personal court cases with the RNC broke, we won't defeat Joe Biden.
Jason, there's a caveat, however, to these national polls. They sort of overlook the Electoral College. Looking at battleground states, Trump's got a significant lead in all but two, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Do you see Trump in a better position to win the general election now than in 2020?
I do. He's polling better than he was in 2016, by the way, and 2020. And like I said earlier, Nikki Haley hasn't won a single state. So she can talk all she wants about general election, but until she beats Donald Trump, and that's a pretty big defeat that she's going to have to do, she can't talk about the general election because that's the problem. She can't win a primary. So to me, this primary has been over for quite some time.
David, looking at Nikki Haley's home state, South Carolina, she was a governor there. She's painted herself as a moderate in both Iowa and New Hampshire to appeal to crossover voters, like we were talking about Democrats earlier. But Democrats in South Carolina remember her as a staunch and ultra-conservative Tea Party union buster. Could her record in her home state actually hurt her in this case?
Well, I think it could as we get past the primary and it heads to the general and people start to recognize, wait, who is Nikki Haley and what has she said? I mean, look at the IVF issue now that when life starts, you have a big contrast between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. For those saying that Nikki Haley is not this conservative person that she is kind of ridiculous because she is taking these hard-line right-wing stances. So yeah, I think that would hurt her if we got past the primary. But I think it would be smart for Republicans to put forth Nikki Haley because Donald Trump has hit a ceiling, right? Yes, he has a very supportive base. But we see that there's a whole other group of people that are just as enthusiastic to not have Donald Trump. Look, Joe Biden would not be president today if it weren't for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump just keeps losing one race after the other. I know the polls might say that, Donald Trump does pretty well against Joe Biden, but when you actually look at elections, one election after the other since 2016, Republicans have fared very poorly. His coattails are very thin, very short, and he's losing races one after the other. And that's a real problem, I think, for Republicans, that his coattails, when he's on the top of the ticket, it excites a whole bunch of people to come out and either to vote for Republicans, but more to vote against him and his team.
Speaking of Donald Trump, I want to retouch one of our earlier topics, how despite a slew of criminal convictions and charges looming over the former president, he seems very successful at solidifying his base. Let's look at this Marist poll that we touched on earlier. It looks like he'll keep most of his support even if he were convicted of a crime, just a few points off from Republicans and independents. Now, how might a criminal conviction affect the MAGA movement? Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this polling that you're showing shows us that the American people are not buying what the Democrats are doing to him. And I think that that's playing out in every single one of these primary states and in the general election polls, because they're saying that this is totally un-American, this is Marxism, this is illegal lawfare that they're putting against Trump because they can't beat him at the ballot box. It's that simple. The analysis is very simple here.
And to a previous point, Jason, that David made, Trump has, some of his critics and political watchers say that he's his own worst enemy at certain points. When it comes to a key electorate, the suburban woman vote, what does he need to do to tap into that in a general election?
I think that he needs to express to the American people, look where we were 4 years ago. Look where our country was under my leadership. Look where our country is under Joe Biden and the Democrats' leadership. We had record employment. We had peace in the Middle East and around the world. We had no new wars. We had no inflation like we do now, 40-year high inflation, wars in Ukraine, wars in Israel. China is now looking at Taiwan. I mean, we are the weakest point we've ever been as Americans. And so I think that he needs to express that to suburban mothers who have children. And also we should go back, he should talk and express what happened under Joe Biden's leadership as far as it relates to immigration. I mean, we have nearly 10 million illegals in this country from all around the world. Suburban mothers that are out there, they should be paying attention to that. Fentanyl is killing our children. I mean, that's a huge issue for suburban women.
Well, if I could just say, I mean, all those points, it might sound good, but the problem is it's just blame, right? It's vote for me and I will do the best blaming other people. Immigration, I think the Republicans have totally lost that issue. To scream and yell, to say we have a problem at the border, and then, okay, Democrats coming to the table, reneging on or relinquishing some of the things, hard lines that they would not have done in the past. They say, yes, the border is a problem. We want to do something comprehensive. Let's get legislation done. Donald Trump says, no, we're not going to do it. So that's how we won the Congressional District 3 in Long Island, because they're complaining about migrants, complaining about the border, and then what? Elect me to Congress so I won't do anything?
Hold on one second.
And then if we're going to talk about record employment, it was record unemployment under President Trump. President Trump is only the second president in the history of the United States to have less jobs when he left office than he started. And then I know my friend Jason's going to say, oh, but it was COVID. Well, if we're going to do apples to apples, then we have to do that. So to say, oh, there was no wars during Donald Trump. There were. I mean, that's this. But
there
that's
were no new wars.
But then that's to also claim responsibility for having less jobs than you did when you started.
I am blaming Joe Biden for the border problem. Joe Biden was handed.
We're gonna come back to this discussion in just a minute.
Joe Biden was handed a perfectly secure border, and he has facilitated an invasion of 10 million illegals into this country.
No, it's false.
Why? This is a fascinating discussion. It's a great discussion. We're going to come back to it in just a moment. We've got a lot more to talk about as we wait for the polls to close in South Carolina. We'll be back right after this very short break.
But first, I think we do now have the clip of our very own Jack Bradley at CPAC from earlier. Let's see if that's going to play and what he has for us.
I'm here at CPAC right outside of Washington, D.C., where it's wrapping up its 4-day event with its headline speaker, Donald Trump, who's speaking on Saturday, the same day as the South Carolina primary. And, of course, his rival, Nikki Haley's trailing behind by a wide margin in the polls. And he is delivering remarks on today's event and also his trials as well as other issues. Let's take a look at some of those highlights from today.
But by the time this guy gets out of office, we'll have 18 million people, in my opinion, in a country that shouldn't be here. And they do come from prisons and mental institutions, and they are terrorists. And we're going to be paying a price, and it'll be the largest deportation in the history of our country. And we have no choice. The first and most urgent action when we win will be the sealing of the border, stopping the invasion, drill, baby, drill. Send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home. We'll do all of those things. We're going to win the election. We're going to win it big. We're going to win it bigger than ever before. We're going to do things that nobody believed. It's going to be more important even than 2016. We are going to make America great again.
I spoke to several influential conservative leaders in the last few days while here at CPAC, and a lot of them talked about issues related to the election. Let's take a look at some of that now.
President Trump is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. The only person that doesn't realize that in America is Nikki Haley herself, and it's such a shame that she is preventing our party from fully unifying around President Trump so we can take the fight to Joe Biden, who is, by the way, completely unable and unfit to lead this country. It's not about age between President Trump and Joe Biden. It is about cognitive ability.
Do we continue to fund a war that has nothing to do with America? No, we don't. We're spending money to secure the borders of another nation when it's our own borders that our taxpayers' money should be going towards. So I have never supported the continuation of funding to Ukraine.
My expectation is we're going to see Donald Trump in court more. We're going to see more, more focus on these very, very extraordinary, imbalanced, outrageous judgments against him. And I think independent voters more and more in a growing sense are going to look at that and say, yeah, I can't stand for that anymore.
And that wraps up this year's CPAC, certainly an important event in the conservative movement. Back to you.
That was NTD's Jack Bradley at CPAC for us, and we've got a lot more to talk about as we wait for polls to close in South Carolina. We'll be back right after this very short break.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and this is my story. I was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone disease. I have broken my bones almost 200 times, and I have had 11 surgeries. But I didn't let that stop me. I love to bike ride, climb, race, and I'm learning how to stand and walk. But I can only do all of this because of generous people like you and Shriners Hospitals for Children.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children has helped more than 1.3 million kids just like me, regardless of their family's ability to pay.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is only able to provide this world-class, life-changing medical care because of the generous gifts of people just like you.
Because of you, I can ride my bike. I can play basketball.
Because of people like you, I can run.
I can smile.
Will you send your love to the rescue today?
When you go to loveshriners.org right now and give just 63 cents a day, you're helping kids just like me.
Like me. Like me. When you give today, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of the love you gave to a kid just like me.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
This is your moment to make a difference.
When you pick up your phone, I know you have it right there, and call to give. You're helping kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you for giving.
A friend of mine, she told me about Bonatti. He was the only one to address all 4 discs as quickly as possible. And if you're to that point where you can't take it anymore, like I was, do your research, find out who the best is, and get it done.
Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
And welcome back to The Nation Decides. I'm Steve Lance.
And I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's go to our on-the-ground reporter, NTD's Iris Tao, following the former president in South Carolina. Now, Iris, the RNC has proposed some resolutions. What can you tell us about that?
So as we're waiting for former President Trump to speak at this watch party, you can see the room is getting pretty heated up here with the music playing, guests coming in. But we've seen the Trump campaign just issued a statement criticizing 2 resolutions now put before the Republican National Committee. So these 2 resolutions seem to be targeting Trump, with one of them seeking to prevent the RNC from explicitly supporting a candidate until the candidate has reached the threshold for the number of delegates needed for the nomination. And the other resolution, meanwhile, seeking to prevent the RNC from paying a candidate's legal fees. So both are pretty clear to target Trump. And Trump's campaign issued a statement saying, quote, "The primary is over and it is the RNC's sole responsibility to defeat Joe Biden and win back the White House," adding, quote, "Efforts to delay that assist Joe Biden in the destruction of our nation." So while we're waiting for results to come out at the South Carolina primary, we have seen questions about how the RNC will support Trump in the months going forward. The resolutions will not be considered until March, but it's not sure how much support they're going to get. Meanwhile, we've also seen Trump actually turning his focus increasingly to Joe Biden. For example, today at the CPAC speech, Trump did not even mention Nikki Haley, but focusing mostly on Joe Biden. That's the case for his rallies here in South Carolina as well, spending a large portion of his speech targeting Joe Biden at the White House. So we're, of course, a lot of expectations about what tonight's speech will be about, especially after results come out about who's going to win this South Carolina primary. Back to you all.
Great reporting out there as always. Thank you, Iris.
Certainly sounds like the energy is picking up there at that watch party. Be keeping an eye on it. Back to our in-studio guests, however, Republican strategist Jason Meier and Democratic strategist David Carlucci. Brought to the forefront of the national discussion is the issue of mental acuity. You have Haley, Trump, and Biden all making this part of their campaign messaging, and they're all forced to address it. So I want to play a clip of them speaking to this issue.
And I've called for cognitive tests. I actually think anybody running for president should have tests. I think, and I pass them every time. Dr. Ronnie Jackson gave me the first one.
Are we really in this country going to have 2 80-year-olds running for president? It is a fact that when you are their age, you have mental decline. I don't care who you are.
My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen?
And right now we're going to take a look at this January NBC poll, which found that 6% are concerned that Biden doesn't have the necessary mental and physical health to be president for a second term. 48% expressing concerns for Trump, a nearly 30% difference. So I guess, David, my question to you, if Biden were to win the nomination, his campaign is going to have to somehow energize voters for a good turnout this year. Could this question of his mental health snowball into a problem that ultimately ends up lowering enthusiasm and turnout among Democrats, which we were talking about earlier this November?
Yeah, well, it's not a new issue, right? This has been around for at least the past year, maybe longer, and people have been, nailing away at the president, saying about the cognitive ability. But I think it's a matter of, show me, don't tell me. Right? The fact that Biden can point to all these successes, that he's actually passed the CHIPS bill, the infrastructure bill, has done a lot of work on so many issues, like he said in that clip, that many thought he couldn't do. So he's actually delivered and used that experience that he's had in the Senate as vice president to the benefit of the American people. And then what's important, when we look at that poll and it says that 76% of people are concerned about Biden's age or mental acuity, the interesting thing about that poll is that that doesn't mean they're not going to vote for the president. What it means is that they're concerned. And many people will still vote for the president. When you juxtapose that to Trump's biggest weakness, which is the criminality and all those charges, yes, it's a concern. Many people will still vote for Donald Trump, but it's a less of a percentage in terms of juxtaposing it between the criminality and the age issue. A lot of people will not vote for Donald Trump because of that criminality issue. So I think when we look at the intensity of those polling numbers, that's what we really got to look at. And I think that these issues will nullify each other because unlike the criminal issue, Biden doesn't have any of that. You have congressional hearings that have been spending a year, if not more, going after Donald Trump and going after Biden and trying to find all these reasons that he's had illegal affairs, and they haven't come up with anything. They validated the president in saying that he hasn't done anything nefarious or illegal. And meanwhile, we have this issue with the cognitive ability. And if you look at Donald Trump, if we compare the two and analyze them just as much, Donald Trump has almost just as many gaffes, if not more, than Joe Biden.
Jason, I know you're chomping at the bit right now. Yes, please.
Please. To say that Joe Biden has no criminality and that you're comparing Donald Trump's criminality to Joe Biden's, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to stop you there. Joe Biden, his son, he converted to a bagman to collect and split with him millions of dollars of graft
this is
from all around the world.
But this is not proven.
They got 51 intelligence officers to lie and say that it was Russian disinformation so that when Joe Biden got on the debate stage, on the second debate stage, he could say and lie through his dentures that that was Russian disinformation. Now, let's address the mental acuity issue. Joe Biden, if anyone has eyes and ears, knows that Joe Biden is far gone. He can't make it up a flight of stairs. He falls off stationary bicycles. He needs notes to read. He's totally gone. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is very sharp right now. He's in courtrooms fighting the fight, taking it to the American people and showing them how mentally fit he is for office. Now, as far as Joe Biden is concerned, I mean, that's what they did. They chose the most mentally decapacitated, corrupt, complicit, and compliant candidate that they could in order to do as much damage as they could in the allotted amount of time.
Talking about Donald
Jason,
Trump.
hold on, Jason, I want to ask you a question, though. I mean, to David's point, whether or not you like Joe Biden's track record, but he mentioned the CHIPS Act, he was quite successful in satisfying much of the Democratic base. So is this something that they would be willing to overlook?
Look, there's no question that Joe Biden is a puppet in which Obama is now achieving his third term. Obama has been very successful because the establishment rhinos and the Republicans have been pathetic in fighting against Joe Biden's policies and the puppet that he is. But that doesn't mean that he's mentally all there, because we all know he is completely gone.
We're going to come back to this discussion in just a moment when we return with our special coverage of the South Carolina primary. More from Dave Martin at the Data Hub. That and a lot more after this very short break.
What do you do when your tire goes flat? and there's no air anywhere. You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com, and for a limited time, get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed, or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
And welcome back to The Nation Decides. I'm Steve Lance.
And I'm Tiffany Meier.
And right now, let's go to the Data Hub for some screen touch action with Dave Martin.
Welcome back. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they already had the Democratic primary earlier this month. It was a predictable outcome with Biden winning, of course. But what wasn't so predictable was how few people showed up. Now, look at this here. South Carolina Democratic primary turnout 2024. Just 4% of voters showed up. That's actually a very low amount. Look, just 4 years ago, you had 4 times as many, 16% showed up. What are some possible reasons? Probably one, that Biden is the incumbent. Probably a lot of voters are just comfortable with that. But it also could be a sign of low voter enthusiasm. You know, surveys have actually shown Trump's voters have a lot more voter enthusiasm. They want to get out and vote. Another possible reason could be disaffected voters. You know, maybe they have someone else in mind that they want to vote for. Possibly even Haley, possibly Trump, possibly even RFK. We don't really know. Now, one other thing to mention, early voting in the GOP primary actually started back on February 12, and as of Thursday, more than 200,000 votes had already been cast. That's compared to just 132,000 votes cast in the entire Democratic primary voting. And that doesn't even count anything for today, where a majority of the votes are going to be. So a lot of interest in this race. Something we'll be watching for. Will any of those disaffected voters come in and cast their ballots here? And how will that affect the race? You know, who will they be voting for? That's something we'll be following. For right now, let's head back to the desk.
Thanks for that update, Dave. We'll be checking back with you when the polls in South Carolina are set to close in just about 10 minutes at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We do have a bit of an update, an interesting bit of information coming in from CPAC, their straw poll, which everybody waits for there, for the next vice president. There was a straw poll done at CPAC, and there was a tie. You had, and we're gonna get the panel's thoughts on it. You had South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem and Vivek Ramaswamy coming in and tying at 15% each. Did you see this coming?
I didn't think it was to be a tie. I actually think Vivek Ramaswamy would be the absolute greatest vice president for Donald Trump, and I think it would be a bold move on the president's behalf. I think that Vivek is one of the best orators of the America First movement. I think he articulates the position very well. He's very young. I think you could have 4 years of Donald Trump and then 8 great years of Vivek Ramaswamy. So I would like to see Vivek be his vice president.
Some say he's almost too good and takes the spotlight from the former president.
We have a very big fight ahead of us going to 2024. It's to save the fabric of this nation, and I think Vivek meets the level that we need.
I mean, I would love to see Vivek Ramaswamy as the VP for Donald Trump, because I think they would just totally tank. I don't see what that would add to the ticket for the GOP. I mean, it's a race to the far right. I think they're forgetting that they've actually got to attract a few moderates, maybe not Democrats, but maybe some independents to the ticket. And having someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, who has tried to almost outdo Trump in his extremism, in his rhetoric, would be a disaster for the GOP. I think they've got to look to, how do you balance the ticket? I understand it's red meat for the MAGA movement. They're very excited about some of the things that Donald Trump does. But this is about if you actually want to win. And that's the thing that I've noticed. Many of the politicians I see, and Congress is a good example, it's almost as if they don't want the majority. They don't want to be in power. They'd rather throw stones and blame all day. And that's why Republicans have underperformed in each federal race we've seen since Donald Trump has been president. Look at 2022. Republicans should have killed Democrats. They had all of the historical trends to do that, and yet they have a 2-3 seat majority in the House. The Democrats, sure, we've got extremists, right, in Congress. We've got some radicals on the left. But unlike the Republicans, we don't let them steer the ship. And that's what's happened to the Republican Party. They've steered the ship into a mess, and they almost don't even have a sail. They're just rudderless.
So before we come back to the discussion, we're just going to play some sound of former President Trump revealing his short list for vice president.
The audience has been asked who they think would be a good choice, and various names came up. One of them was, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's made a big splash. Ron DeSantis, who's making an appearance today in South Carolina, we just found out. Obviously, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, and a big presence here for Tulsi Gabbard. Very interesting. And Kristi Noem as well, I should say. Right. Are they all on your short list? And when can we expect that you will announce?
Jason, Trump's been mentioning Tim Scott a lot in this town hall. He pointed to Tim Scott, the camera panned to him. What do you think of Senator Scott as a potential VP?
I don't think he has the fire in his belly that I'd like to see that I think Vivek Ramaswamy has. I'm not a big fan of Tim Scott. I think he's a perfectly nice guy. I think he's a smart guy, but I don't think he's going to meet the level in which I need to see for a vice president going to 2024. And addressing David's point, I think that what people are missing is that Donald Trump gut renovated the Republican Party. He really transformed the party. And so I think when you talk about some of the previous elections that were lost, it really wasn't the Trump and the MAGA, it was the establishment Republican Party. And when you talk about balancing the ticket and having more of like a establishment rhino type candidate, because that kind of brings in the moderates and the independents, I actually would disagree. I mean, I think we've learned our lessons in the past. I think Mike Pence was a mistake in the end. And so I think that, again, a Vivek Ramaswamy has that fire in his belly, has the orator skills to express to suburban women and mothers what is going on at the border, and the fact that the Democrats have facilitated an invasion of our country, have taken the fentanyl that's coming across our border and killing our children. I think that Vivek has what it takes.
I want to go to something Trump said recently that got him a lot of negative press. No surprise there. His comments were about NATO and members not fulfilling their defense spending commitments. Let's watch that clip now.
The Secretary General Stoltenberg, well, I don't know if he is anymore, but he was my biggest fan. He said all these presidents came in, they'd make a speech, they'd leave, and that was it. And they all owed money, and they wouldn't pay it. I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Now, during his presidency, the number of NATO members meeting their defense spending commitments jumped from 5 to 9. We often say actions speak louder than words, but that's not always the case in politics. Are Trump's comments dicey enough to seriously undermine the achievements he did build over his 4 years in office? Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that President Trump is articulating that the America First movement, essentially, and his foreign policy speaks for itself. He delivered peace through strength. He used our military might as a strategical way, a surgical way. He only used it in very minimal parts at times, and I think that basically kept everyone in check. And I think that he's perfectly right in saying what he said.
I disagree. I think that's nice thinking, but when we really look at the facts, Donald Trump has done nothing to really help us through peace through strength. We look at what's going on in Ukraine. We've had to replenish our supplies because there hasn't been attention focused on making sure we have the strongest military on the face of the planet. Look, what Donald Trump said was extremely reckless. The fact is we go from 5 to 9 nations paying 2% of their GDP. Okay. Is that the point of NATO? No, the point of NATO is to continue the 75-year alliance we've had with these countries that no nation of NATO has been attacked, has been invaded, because the peace through strength is standing up for your allies, not to be a fair weather friend. We're not negotiating a lease for a penthouse in Manhattan. We're talking about the survival of the future of these NATO allies. And to say, oh, you're late on a bill, you didn't pay the full amount, we're not going to defend you. And not only that, we're going to encourage Russia to attack. I mean, if we haven't heard reckless words, this is the pinnacle. This is the icing on the cake. And Donald Trump has said a lot of reckless things. But in a time where we're going to talk about crisis overseas, what's going on in the Ukraine, and to belittle it, to talk
Ukraine
about
would have never been attacked under Donald Trump.
And why is that?
And Israel wouldn't have been attacked by Hamas if it wasn't for Joe Biden.
It's
just
weakness. It's weakness. Weakness in terms of what? Because I talk strong, because I just say things and I'll just say whatever and never admit when you make a mistake. That's not strength. That's not strength. That's not leadership. And I think that is a problem. When we could just say, oh, because between the years that Donald Trump was president, that Hamas didn't invade Israel, because Russia didn't invade Ukraine.
Right.
The fact that the only reason why was because Donald Trump was president, I think that rings hollow. I don't think it's true. I think it's complete fallacy. And the fact that he's now having this bromance relationship with Putin, and other Republican leaders are as well, is very concerning. And I don't understand why it is, but it's almost this idea that they're saying Russia is better than the United States. And there's nothing further than the truth, but I don't really understand that movement. But it seems like the Republican Party is cozying up to Putin, and it's a real, it'll be devastating results for the American people.
Russia. Right, so the Steele dossier and the fact that Hillary Clinton concocted the Russiagate hoax out of whole cloth, and we went 4 and 5 years, we were on the media talking about Russia hoax. It was all a joke. It was all a complete hoax. And now we're going back.
Well, no, we're going back because Donald Trump just made the comments.
We're going to come back to this once again. We have to go to break right now, but the polls are closing in just moments away from now. We've got a lot more coming up as we wait for those polls to close. Not much longer now. Don't go away. Coming back soon.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and this is my story. I was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, or brittle bone disease. I have broken my bones almost 200 times, and I have had 11 surgeries. But I didn't let that stop me. I love to bike ride, climb, race, and I'm learning how to stand and walk. But I can only do all of this because of generous people like you and Shriners Hospitals for Children.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children has helped more than 1.3 million kids just like me, regardless of their family's ability to pay.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is only able to provide this world-class, life-changing medical care because of the generous gifts of people just like you.
Because of you, I can ride my bike. I can play basketball.
Because of people like you, I can run.
I can smile.
Will you send your love to the rescue today?
When you go to loveshriners.org right now and give just 63 cents a day, you're helping kids just like me.
Like me.
Like me. When you give today, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of the love you gave to a kid just like me.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
This is your moment to make a difference.
When you pick up your phone, you know you have it right there. And call to give. You're helping kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you for giving.
A friend of mine, she told me about Bonatti. He was the only one to address all 4 discs as quickly as possible. And if you're to that point where you can't take it anymore, like I was, do your research, find out who the best is, and get it done.
Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
Hi, I'm Caleb, and this is my story. I was born with osteogenesis imperfecta or brittle bone disease. I have broken my bones almost 200 times, and I have had 11 surgeries. But I didn't let that stop me. I love to bike ride, climb, race, and I'm learning how to stand and walk. But I can only do all of this because of generous people like you and Shriners Hospitals for Children.
Because of people like you, Shriners Hospitals for Children has helped more than 1.3 million kids just like me, regardless of their family's ability to pay.
Shriners Hospitals for Children is only able to provide this world-class, life-changing medical care because of the generous gifts of people just like you.
Because of you, I can ride my bike. I can play basketball.
Because of people like you, I can run.
I can smile.
Will you send your love to the rescue today?
When you go to loveshriners.org right now and give just 63 cents a day, you're helping kids just like me.
Like me.
Like me. When you give today, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of the love you gave to a kid just like me.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
This is your moment to make a difference.
When you pick up your phone, you know you have it right there. And call to give. You're helping kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org.
Your gift makes a difference. Thank you for giving.
And we have a big announcement to make. The polls have closed officially in the state of South Carolina for the Republican primary, and we are projecting Donald J. Trump to win that state's primary. I think this was obviously expected by most. Still to be counted are the votes, many of the votes, to find out what exactly that margin will be. But we are projecting that Donald Trump has won the state of South Carolina.
That is what the polls have been saying, and of course we'll see what it is saying compared to New Hampshire, where it was a smaller margin than we thought.
That's right, and this was expected from looking a few months out. Trump won Iowa, he won Nevada, South Carolina. New Hampshire. No person who's won the GOP primary has ever lost Iowa and New Hampshire.
And in case no one knows, we do have some new faces with us here. We have NTD's Chris Spears, our political correspondent, and Arlene Richards, our legal correspondent. They're joining us now.
And we're very happy to have everybody here. We want to discuss the issue of all of the charges that have been leveled against former President Trump, both on the state and federal level. Obviously hasn't affected him in South Carolina. Let's start with the ballot eligibility case, specifically in Colorado, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. This one could have a huge impact on the election in a general.
Well, so far, Maine and Colorado have officially disqualified Trump from their ballots. And of course, those decisions are on hold until the Supreme Court makes its final ruling on the Colorado case. Now, if they rule against Trump, that could mean the end of his presidential run, because there are several cases across the country that are waiting to remove him from the ballot. But so far, it seems that they are leaning toward ruling in his favor. Now, another thing that I want to point out is that if he doesn't run anymore, then Nikki Haley could potentially become the Republican nominee, or the other candidates that just suspended their.
So, Arlene, I'm going to interrupt you if I could. Donald Trump is coming onto the stage right now. This is very fascinating to give a speech. This was just minutes after the polls closed in South Carolina. If we all recall, Nikki Haley at the New Hampshire primary kind of surprised everybody and came out early. So it looks like a little bit of gamesmanship here, Tiff.
It does look like that. We've never seen Trump this early to anything. Normally we're waiting on him for almost an hour, right?
Yes, indeed. And it looks like he's setting up right now and doing his rounds around the stage as the crowd is cheering on. And we're gonna bring his speech live to everybody as it does come in. And in the meantime, Arlene, if you want to finish your thought, on this.
Just one final thought. I was saying that if Nikki Haley becomes the Republican nominee, then the other candidates who suspended their race could come back in, and then we could have a new race all over again.
That's right. And if you look at how Trump is responding to this ballot case, back in December, he was saying it's election interference by the Democrats. His campaign sent out an email saying, they want to erase your right to vote for me, in all caps. And of course, he's always saying, they're not after me, they're coming after you. And to his point about election interference, this has never happened before. There's never been a former president who's been indicted. And this former president has been indicted 4 times. He's got 91 criminal charges. So he's got all these court appointments, and he's really using these as campaign stops in his campaign.
On the note of his cases, I want to highlight some states here. The New York Times is reporting the cases have been filed against Trump in at least 35 states. That's more than half of the nation. You've got delegate-rich states in there: Texas, California, Florida, and New York. Now, if Trump were to be removed from the primary and general election ballots, his chances of winning anything would be dramatically cut down because of that.
And we're gonna go to the president right now in South Carolina.
Something. This was a little sooner than we anticipated. An even bigger win than we anticipated. And I was just informed that we got double the number of votes that has ever been received in the great state of South Carolina. So that's pretty good. So it's a record times 2. There's something going on in the country. Some really great things are going on. You look outside and you see all of the horror. You see millions and millions of people coming across the border illegally. We don't know where they come from. They come from jails. They come from prisons. They come from all sorts of places that we don't want to know. They come from mental institutions and insane asylums. And we don't want that in our country. We're not going to stand for it. We're not going to stand for it. You have terrorists coming in. You have people coming in that we just can't, we can't do this. No country could sustain what's happening to the United States of America, no country. So we're going to straighten things out. The border is the worst it's ever been. You know, in 2016 we won, and we had a bad border, and I talked about the border a lot, talked about it a lot. And I said, we're going to fix it, we're going to fix it. We fixed it very quickly. And in 2020, we couldn't talk about it, although we did get millions of more votes a second time. But now there's a spirit that I have never seen. We ran 2 great races, but there's never been a spirit like this. And I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now. Never been like that. And a big part of that is the people standing behind me. These are the biggest officials in South Carolina, but I say like the biggest officials in our country as far as I'm concerned. They're state figures, but they're national figures, and in the truest sense of the word, they love our country so much, and they want to see our country succeed and be respected again. Right now, we're a laughing stock all over the world. Our country is going to be respected again, respected like never before. So this is a fantastic evening. It's an early evening and a fantastic. So you can all go down and you can celebrate for about 15 minutes, and we have to get back to work because the big day, you know, Michigan's coming up. We're doing great. The auto workers are going to be with us 100% because they got sold out by this country. But Michigan's up, and we're going to have a tremendous success there. And then we have a thing called Super Tuesday, and I think we're leading 91-7 overall. If you don't mind, may I have the pleasure of introducing some incredible people? Because they stuck right from the beginning, from the very moment we announced, and they believe in make America great again. That's what they believe in. They believe in America first. We're putting America first. First of all, my family, Melania, Barron, Don Jr. and Kimberly, Ivanka and Jared, Tiffany and Michael. They're so supportive. So supportive of me, and we really appreciate it and love them. They're great. We have a great family, and we have incredible friends, and we're going to be up here on November 5th, and we're going to look at Joe Biden, and we're going to look him right in the eye. He's destroying our country, and we're going to say, Joe, you're fired. Get out. Get out, Joe. You're fired. They're destroying our country, and we're going to... I just wish we could do it quicker. 9 months is a long time. I just wish we could do it quicker, Mr. Governor. I wish we... Is there anything you can do with your vast powers to make that, you know, in certain countries you're allowed to call your election date. If I had the right to do it, I'd do it tomorrow. I'd say, we're having an election. Henry, is there anything you can do? I want to start off because right from the beginning, Henry McMaster, the governor of this incredible state, and much more importantly, his wife Peggy, she's with him all the way, I'll tell you. Never saw anything, what a couple. But I'd like to ask him to say a few words. He's a very special man, an incredible governor, very popular in the state, and really, I mean, he gave us some very good advice, and he has right from the beginning. You know, from the day I announced, I had the lieutenant governor. He was the lieutenant governor. And from right at the beginning, when I announced, and I said, I don't know the gentleman. Is he good? They said, he's really great. I said, well, I hope so. And you know what? Within about 2 weeks, I said, that guy is unbelievable. You know, I never got the support of the governor. She supported somebody else, but I had the support of somebody much, much better, Henry McMaster. And we won in a landslide. And I'd like to ask the governor to say a few words. Please, Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very brief. Y'all, I'd like you all to remember this moment that you were here. This is a great moment in American history. We will probably never see another one like it. Every time a rocket launches, you know, it goes up slow and then it's climbing and climbing, and then boom, that next stage comes off and it goes. Well, we just did that. We just hit maximum velocity. And we're going all the way.
So I'm going to ask somebody else to say, because he came on board and Lindsay wanted him and the lieutenant governor wanted him and everybody wanted him. Henry and Peggy wanted him. So I thought he was okay, but he didn't love speaking about himself because he's a good person. See, I have no problem with that. It's a problem. What a personality, I don't know. But he endorsed me. And then we asked him to go and do a few shows, and you know, they're not often nice shows. They're very hostile. And what he did was, I said, is this the same man? And he campaigned nicely, but he's a high-quality person. When he was supporting me, the day, is that correct, Lindsay, when he went out, Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott, he went out and he was ripping it. I said, what happened to Tim Scott? What a dynamo. And he has been one of our great advocates. He's been doing things that have been unbelievable, and I'm just very happy he didn't have that same energy, drive, because I think I probably would have been out of the race a long time ago. But I want to say, a very special man. I really do mean it. So many people have such great respect for him, and you're very lucky to have him in the state. Tim, please, say a few words.
Hello, South Carolina! The longer I speak, the less you hear of him. So let me just ask one survey question, and you better answer it loud and clear. Is South Carolina Trump country?
Thank you very much, Tim. Really great job. Amazing. Another man, not a lot of people know him. He doesn't do too much television. He happens to be a little bit further left than some of the people on the stage. But I always say, when I'm in trouble on the left, I call up Lindsey Graham and he straightens it out so fast. And I'll tell you, no, remember, I love him. He's a good man. Come up here, Lindsay. Come up here, Lindsay. Come here.
Okay, you ready? America, the nightmare you're facing is just about over. Help is on the way. This is the most qualified man to be president of the United States. And let it be said that South Carolina created the biggest political comeback in American history.
Thank you. So, I have a son. He's a very talented guy, and he works so hard, and we love him, and his wife is very good. She goes on, and Laura. And I want to thank Eric and Laura for doing such a fantastic job, and really amazing. They're amazing people. Let's go down a little list of some of the people that are up here tonight, because every one of them is a star in their own right. And your lieutenant governor is going places. You do know that, right? Pamela Abbott. And really going places. And Speaker of the House, Merle Smith, who's coming up in a couple. You know, some of these people are actually busy. He's running to get over here. But we want to thank you, Speaker of the House. Fantastic person, doing a great job for the state. An Attorney General who's been in the news lately a lot, winning cases. Oh, I wish we had such a good Attorney General like that in New York. Oh. He's a great Attorney General. Alan Wilson, thank you, Alan. His father happens to be up here too. Remember his famous, "You lied," remember? He's been loved ever since, hasn't he, huh? Treasurer Curtis Loftus. Curtis, thank you very much. Wherever you may be, thank you. Thank you, Curtis. Mark Hammond, Secretary of State. Thank you, Mark. Ambassador, and this is a great ambassador, one of the best. Anytime we had a problem, I just called Ed McMullen, and he would solve the problem very quickly. Ed, thank you very much. We have a man who's done a really good job in the state, your South Carolina GOP chair, Drew McKissick. Thank you. Thank you. We have a highly opinionated group of people. I'll tell you, they turned very positive on you very quickly, Elizabeth. So, you have a beautiful, beautiful state right next to you, North Carolina. We love North Carolina. In fact, they named their daughter Carolina. And I said, which state? She said both. She's I think I know which state, but that's okay. But they have the most beautiful daughter named Carolina. So we love both of them. We love them both very much. And we won them both very easily. And one of the reasons we won North Carolina is a man named Michael Watley, who looks to me, we gave him our endorsement, and he looks to me like he's going to be going on to the National Republican Party as the boss. Michael Watley. Where is Michael? Michael, thank you very much. And he's going to be working with Laura. And we may be putting Kellyanne in the group, too. Do we like Kellyanne? We love Kellyanne. But you're going to do a fantastic job, both of you. We appreciate it very much. Beginning of 2020, with those votes coming in, we're leading in Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden, something happened. It went boom. And then we're leading all over the place, Georgia, and then boom. And we're leading. But North Carolina, I said, when is that going to go? When are they going to drop lots of ballots into that one? And you know what he did? He just kept that thing, and we never had a problem. And I said, that's my kind of guy. He had hundreds of lawyers. How many lawyers did you have? 500 lawyers. He had 500 lawyers to make sure they didn't cheat, and they didn't cheat in North Carolina. And I said, that's my kind of guy, so I appreciate it. Great job. We're very proud of you, and you're going to do a fantastic job. And come election period, we used to have election night. Now we have election period because some of these elections go on for 48 days, 61 days. Then they get all this equipment, and they'll be announcing the vote in 3 weeks from now. Can you imagine? They don't know what they're doing, but I will tell you, you have done a fantastic job, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. We also have a lot of members of Congress, including members of Congress out in the audience. This room is full of energy, and our party is full of energy like never before. And I mean it. There's never been unity. There has never been unity in our party. Just the fact, think of it, we've had a lot of primaries in this state. The fact that we got double the number of votes in history, there's never been anything like that. Who's ever heard of that? So we have members of Congress with us. I'm very proud of this one because I sort of said, that guy would be great. We had somebody that did a vote that I wasn't exactly happy with. He voted to impeach your favorite president. And until then, he'd love to have that vote back, I can tell you. But until then, he was a man that couldn't be beaten. I said, really, let's see. I said, who do we have that's good? And they said, the best we have is a man named Russell Fry. And Russell Fry got out there, beat him so badly in the primaries. He had my support. And he's been a fantastic congressman. So wherever you may be, hi, Russell. What a great job. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was great. We got rid of that one. We got rid of a lot of them. Almost, I guess, every one of them. Almost every one of them. Now they're gone. The impeachers are all gone. Nancy Mace is here, a non-controversial person. but she's a real advocate, and she's become a real advocate, and I appreciate it, Nancy, very much. Thank you very much. She's a very strong woman, and we want strong women. We like strong women. William Timmons, Congressman William Timmons, who's been a fantastic warrior for our country. Joe Wilson, I spoke to you about him before. He is tough and he is smart. And he and his beautiful wife produced a wonderful, wonderful Attorney General. So, Joe, thank you very much, and you've done a fantastic job. Loves our country. Michael Waltz knows more about the military probably than anybody. And we see him on a lot, and they always want his opinion. And he's got very strong opinions, and he hates to see what's happening to our country. That I can tell you, but he'll straighten it out. We'll all straighten it out together. Michael Collins. Michael, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Great job. A very non-controversial person, but a very good person. People don't understand. This is a very good person, and he's a very capable man, Matt Gaetz. Thank you, Matt. That's not bad, Matt. Wow. Wow. That's impressive. I'm very impressed, right? Very good. Matt, what's going on? How many people did you put up here, huh? That's fantastic. And by the way, before I forget, we have a group of people, and I know this is okay with you, from North Carolina. It's about 60 women that travel all over the country with me. Every time I'm out, we do a rally. We have to do, at least it has to be of significance, so usually rallies. But I think they're up to number 121. They've done 100. They're all beautiful women. Obviously, they're very wealthy. They look so wealthy and beautiful. Look at them over here. But they travel all over the country, and way over 100. And I'm trying to figure out the husband. They're all happily married. They have these wonderful husbands. Hey, one of the husbands is standing right there. He's the smartest one of all. But I just want to thank you. Your support is so incredible. I get out, and it's like a breath of fresh air. I look at these incredible people, and at least here we're having one that's very close, right? You don't have to travel out to California and Texas and all the other places. Well, we very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Very special women. A woman who was actually out campaigning today. She is the hardest worker. I said, Marjorie, this is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I said, Marjorie, you don't have to do. She went to a polling sector, and she had the Trump flag, and she's waving it and screaming, vote. I said, Marjorie, it's 4:30. It's just about over for the vote. Please. She said, nope, I'm staying longer. This is the hardest working, wherever you are, the most incredible woman. She's respected by everybody. She is very smart. And I'm just very happy that she's on our side. Right, Eric? I'm very happy that she's on our side, right? So it's been an incredible period of time. We have a country that is a failing nation, but we're not going to have a failing nation very long. We are not going to allow this to happen. We love our country. We love it dearly. We're going to fight for our country. We're going to fight for our rights. We're not going to let this go on because it is not sustainable by any country. You cannot let, I believe, the number by the time we get him out. And remember the date, November 5th. It's going to be the most important date perhaps in the history of our country. The election is on November 5th. So we have Michigan coming next week. We have Super Tuesday. We have Mall coming. You know, we've set a record so far in in Iowa, we got the most votes in history times 2, just like this, the biggest margin ever. We then went to New Hampshire. You know, New Hampshire and Iowa, they've been around a long time politically. And we went to New Hampshire. We got the most votes in the history. That's like who has the most home runs, who has the most hits in baseball or who threw the most touchdowns in football, who got the most points in basketball. It's very simple. We got the most votes in the history of New Hampshire primary. That's a tremendous, and that goes back so many decades, and we beat them. You know, you have John F. Kennedy, you have a lot of good people to beat, and we beat them by not a little bit, by a lot. And then we went Virgin Islands. I want to thank the Virgin Islands because they made a very strong play for the Virgin Islands, and we got 100% of the Virgin Islands. And then, of course, Nevada, as you know, we went to Nevada. We got 99.6% of the vote. And then they had a primary, and this is no candidate. You know, it's called, this is, they had various forms, unknown candidate, they had all, but this is no candidate, got 65% of the vote, and they think I was the no candidate because it was a caucus, it wasn't a primary, and you have to know what you're doing. You have to go into the caucus, not the primary, but without going into it, I think we won by 50 points or something like that. So, and then we come here, and what an honor this is. You know, in South Carolina, I've won every primary by a record, and we've won every election by a record, and people like these two, and like this great governor, and your great lieutenant governor, and I have to say, thank you very much, Pam. What a job. Thank you, Pam. They make it really easy, and many of them, as I was announcing, it seems like a long time ago, but as I was announcing, before I finished the speech, they said, we're endorsing Trump. Those are friends. Those are great, great friends. And we had some strong competitors. I mean, we had some very strong competitors, but these were real friends. South Carolina, thank you very much. Go home, get rest. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We love you all. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you very much. God bless you.
And there you have it. Former President Trump wrapping up his speech there, coming back from a speech earlier in the afternoon in the Washington, D.C. area at CPAC. He made some really good time. That was, I think, a speech that caught some people off guard, possibly to outdo Nikki Haley, who made her speech last time when she lost by a significant margin in the New Hampshire primary.
We'll have to learn his travel secrets for getting places so fast. But I did find it fascinating, Trump's focus on his family. He's done something similar in Iowa and New Hampshire, really trying to bring out that message that he is a family man. I think in his previous presidency, he was seen as very tough, but less so on that. He could be targeting more of those suburban women we were talking about earlier. But what did you find most fascinating about his speech?
I think a big theme that I saw in his speech was the issue of loyalty. He brought up the South Carolina member of Congress who voted 1 of 10 to impeach him after the January 6th riots, and how he was easily beaten by somebody who he endorsed to counter. He also inserted the North Carolina GOP representative there who is now going to be the next RNC chair, and how he was able to stop the steal, essentially, in North Carolina when many other states that we saw, like Georgia and Pennsylvania, were allowing ballots to drop. This person, Trump views him as being loyal in North Carolina, where a similar state where that could have happened. He said that he had 500 lawyers, Mr. Whatley there, watching that, making sure that didn't happen. So I think loyalty is definitely a major factor. I think we've known that for quite some time.
With loyalty, I think there's also a big focus on change with, say, America First, all these supporters that he had behind him who are really channeling that message. You even have Lindsey Graham saying, quote, the nightmare you're facing is soon to be over, with Trump back in office, this kind of hopeful view to the future given what we are seeing here. And we really saw the huge support he had with all those people on stage. He almost ran out of time trying to give the mic to everyone.
And the interesting thing was, too, that that was South Carolina, Nikki Haley's home state, let's not forget. And you have the current governor, Governor McMaster, joining former President Trump on stage, along with many, many other elected officials, like you mentioned, Lindsey Graham, Tim Scott, could be a potential VP pick. It was kind of fascinating, though, the response that Lindsey Graham had.
With Senator Tim Scott, right, he got his job thanks to Nikki Haley, and then he endorsed Trump, and Trump was like, wow, you must really hate her if you're endorsing me, even though you got your job from him. Now, to our previous point, though, I think we're talking about Trump's eligibility, ballot cases, and also the Supreme Court. We should be getting a final ruling from the Supreme Court pretty soon.
Yeah, we were expecting to hear something from them on Wednesday, but that didn't happen. So now we're looking at possibly before Super Tuesday. Now, they were leaning toward ruling on behalf of Trump and letting him stay on the ballot, but they didn't want to really touch the subject of the insurrection. So what could happen is if he wins the general election against Biden, we could see another January 6th situation on our hands where people are at the Capitol asking Congress to keep him from holding office.
Yeah, it's also worth noting how big of an issue democracy itself is this election cycle. I mean, of course, cases like this one could dramatically change our election system, but Trump calls this case and so many of these other cases anti-democracy, saying that they're undermining democracy. But at the same time, you have Biden saying that this election cycle is about a choice between democracy and Trump. And of course, he put democracy front and center of his campaign on his campaign speech on January 5th, just the eve of January 6th.
And let's check in now with NTD's Iris Tao, where the polls have closed now. We saw the excitement on stage. Iris, what can you tell us about the mood over there?
So as you can see right now, this room is very excited. Actually, right after polls closed at 7 o'clock, we saw the TV screen right behind us at Trump's stage saying Trump wins South Carolina, and the crowd was just so excited. Of course, Trump came up to speak just minutes after polls were closed, and that's even faster than what we've seen in Iowa and New Hampshire. Trump himself saying in the speech that this was a little sooner than we anticipated, but an even bigger win that we anticipated. So Trump himself is touting that very fast victory, and also what he calls the strongest unity within the GOP party that he has seen. And we also saw on stage right now that he's already looking beyond today and eyeing the next election coming up in other states, as well as the general election in November, saying that we're going to celebrate for 15 minutes and then get back to work right away. And of course, we've also seen a slew of South Carolina lawmakers lining up right next to him and supporting his victory, of course, getting called out by him one by one. So it's Nikki Haley's home state here in South Carolina, but we have seen most of local and federal officials standing behind Trump. And meanwhile, Nikki Haley, we have heard her vowing to stay in the race beyond today, saying that today is a primary, but tomorrow she will still be running for president. And about what that could impact the Republican Party and this race going forward, we will talk to Congressman Byron Donalds yesterday at Trump's rally here in South Carolina. Let's hear what he had to say to us. Watch. Congressman Donalds, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, good to be with you.
So first of all, Nikki Haley is not doing well in the polls, but she is vowing to stay in. Why do you think that's the case? What's her goal here, do you think?
I have no idea. This thing is over. It's time to unite as a party. I mean, look, if people want to donate to Nikki's campaign, that's all well and good. But I think you have a responsibility not only to donors, but also to the party when there's no path to victory. And there is no path to victory. Tomorrow night's going to be a huge night for President Trump. And then Super Tuesday is going to be huge as well. So I don't get what the strategy is. This doesn't make any sense to me. It's not making sense to a lot of members of the party. We need all this to end so we can be focused on November.
By her staying in, do you think that's having an impact on the Republican Party's unity or, campaign strategy overall?
Not too much, because virtually everybody in the party is behind President Trump. Everybody knows what the game is now. But it's a distraction that we don't need. It's one of these things where if you're about to go play for the Super Bowl, you need everybody on the team to be focused on the game, not focused on their own side issues or the things that they want to accomplish for themselves. That doesn't breed victory. So that's why it's important that this primary comes to an end. Hopefully that's tomorrow night, and that we unite as a party and we go be focused on winning the White House, keeping the House, and then getting the Senate back so we can save this country.
Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you.
So while we're not sure how Will stay in the race. We've heard her saying that she's going to campaign every day until the last person votes. But she today was forced to admit that actually what she meant was she's referring specifically to campaigning here in South Carolina, and that she actually hasn't thought about any plans going after Super Tuesday on March 5th. And her campaign said today that they're pouring a lot of resources into Super Tuesday states. So after tonight, we're still waiting for an official response from Haley's team, but let's see after tonight what Haley's plans will be now that she suffers a slew of another defeat here from former President Trump. Back to you.
Iris, thank you for that update.
And there's still so much more to cover as the polls have closed in South Carolina. Dave's got something prepared for us over there. We'll be back shortly with what he has.
Hillsdale College is reaching and teaching millions of Americans to pursue truth and defend liberty. But to do that in an even bigger way, we need your help. Your generous support helps educate students from kindergarten to college, all while refusing every penny of government funding, even indirect funding like student loans or grants. And your dedicated giving allows us to teach millions of Americans through our free online courses. You make all the difference. Give a gift today. Just use this link.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Just call 800-215-1658.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free, and we'll even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Just call 800-215-1658. That's 800-215-1658.
I was born into the wrong body, Mom. I was astounded by what they were teaching. Child Protective Services did show up at my house. Parents are fearful of losing custody of their children because they say the wrong thing. Risks?
No risks. We got everything covered, I assure you, Mrs. Connors.
They don't want anyone to know the truth.
I can't stay quiet about this anymore. It's destroyed my health.
We're pushed into silence.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
I was born into the wrong body, Mom. I was astounded by what they were teaching. Child Protective Services did show up at my house. Parents are fearful of losing custody of their children because they say the wrong thing. Risks?
No risks. We got everything covered, I assure you, Mrs. Connors.
They don't want anyone to know the truth.
I can't stay quiet about this anymore. It's destroyed my health.
We're pushed into silence.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them.
Like I grew up in poverty, and I actually became physically homeless right after I had turned 16.
I didn't have anywhere to sleep, and I didn't really have friends or family that could support me.
To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life.
Without the Covenant House, I honestly could not tell you where I would be today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I would not be here today if it weren't for the kindness of strangers, people who donated to Covenant House so that they could support me when I couldn't support myself.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible.
Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month.
Hillsdale College is reaching and teaching millions of Americans to pursue truth and defend liberty. But to do that in an even bigger way, we need your help. Your generous support helps educate students from kindergarten to college, all while refusing every penny of government funding, even indirect funding like student loans or grants. And your dedicated giving allows us to teach millions of Americans through our free online courses. You make all the difference. Give a gift today. Just use this link.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Just call 800-215-1658.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free, and we'll even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Just call 800-215-1658. That's 800-215-1658.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
And welcome back to NTD's special coverage of the South Carolina GOP primary, where Donald Trump is projected to win that state's primary, 9% of the vote in. But the former president has already addressed the crowd at the watch party there in South Carolina. We have yet to hear from Nikki Haley's campaign. We're keeping a close eye on that, and we're continuing to also watch the data as it comes in. To find out by just what margin former President Trump has won that state. By all the polling, it suggests that it will be by a significant margin. Right now, I do want to turn our attention back to the studio where we have Republican strategist Jason Meister and Democratic strategist David Carlucci. So Trump's come up with some creative ways of getting around censorship and reaching out to audiences. But before we get into other topics, what do you make of the former president's speech there?
Look, history was made tonight. Donald Trump won by double the amount of votes than any other candidate has ever received in South Carolina. And he won women 2-1 from what I'm seeing in the exit polls. So I think it's over. I think Nikki Haley's only in it because Democrats are funding it and they want her as a thorn in his side. But she has no path to victory in the Republican primaries. And so I think this night was excellent.
Does Jason have a point? Does she have a path, or is it time to call it quits?
Well, look, it's all about the delegates. We need 1,215 delegates to secure the nomination. There's only 50 delegates that are up for grabs tonight in South Carolina. It is one of those states where you win by one vote, you get every delegate. There are some states like that, like California down the road. But I think it's important to remember that this is about delegates, right? And we're still a long way off till that day on July 15th in Milwaukee, where the national convention will start. So I think there's good reason to stay in it. There's a lot of projections out there. We see there's only 9% of the vote in, and Donald Trump right now, with the actual numbers, he's only up by 12 or 13%. Yes, a lot of those are early votes that have been casted or absentee ballots. Usually that doesn't favor Donald Trump. But with only now I see 11% in, all the votes haven't been counted. But even if Donald Trump wins, it's still just 50 delegates. There's a long way to go to secure that nomination.
Now, in every presidential race since 1980, save for a fluke in 2012, the GOP nominee has always won South Carolina, the primary there. Now, how do you see that fitting in this year? Is this going to be another fluke?
Well, we need to expect the unexpected with Donald Trump, right? You got pre-Trump and post-Trump. Everything has been flipped on its head after 2016. So to Donald Trump's credit, I might not necessarily like it, but he has excited the Republican base. He's reformed the Republican Party. But with that said, I think we can expect the unexpected. Just the fact that candidates have won, like you said, almost every candidate except Newt Gingrich, that surprise candidate that won the South Carolina primary, has gone on to win the nomination. But that's of the yesteryear. Things have changed, so I wouldn't hold too much credence in that projection. But yes, is Donald Trump the front runner? Does he have the leg up? No question about it. Is Nikki Haley's window getting smaller and smaller? Yes. Is there still a path ahead? I believe that there is for Nikki Haley. It's a small, narrow path, but there is one.
In my opinion, the only reason why we're sitting here saying that there is any path whatsoever, the slightest path, is because Nikki Haley and her donors are relying on the lawfare that Democrats are using against Donald Trump. And I think that's a dangerous path for Nikki Haley, because she would need, in a general election, the Trump base. And the Trump base knows that this is illegal, unconstitutional, un-American lawfare. And so for her to rely on that and bank on that as being an insurance policy in the event that Democrats are successful, or Marxist Democrats are successful in this illegal, unconstitutional, un-American lawfare, I think that's a dangerous path for Nikki Haley.
I think it's a dangerous path.
To Jason's point, let's pull up the poll here if we could, showing support for Trump. It's a national poll, if convicted or not. The spread here, this is an NPR PBS poll, if we have it, we'd like to pull that up, that shows that, if he is convicted, 88%, if not 93%. That's just a 5% spread. I don't know if we have it yet, but with that said, how destructive is it for the Republican Party if Nikki Haley continues to stay in this race despite having any clear path?
I don't think it's as destructive as one might think. I think that it's a decisive win tonight in her home state. I think she looks silly moving forward from here. So look, she'll make that decision with her analysts and her advisors. I think it's a dangerous path to go down, to rely and bank on the illegal, unconstitutional, un-American lawfare.
Look, hey, people vote, polls don't. We could do a lot of prognosticating and predicting, but at the end of the day, it's the people of America that get to decide, right? We don't. So we could say, oh, you only won, you lost by 10%, you lost by 20%. Look, there's still time on the clock. There's still elections to be had. Let's allow people to vote and be able to cast their ballot. Back to the lawfare issue. I think that it's a dangerous path for Republicans to just discredit the entire justice system, the FBI to the DOJ. It's a real dangerous path, and it's almost like we're saying anything that is going up against Trump, we just need to ignore. Whether he's a fraudster, whether he's committed rape. The issues, there's one after the other. The classified documents, even the Her report, which was damaging to Biden in terms of talking about his memory. But the thing that we've got to remember there is there was a delineation between Biden and Trump. In that report, he said, look, Biden is an old man with a poor memory, or a well-meaning old man with a poor memory, whereas he juxtaposed that to say Donald Trump is a ill-meaning old man with a poor memory. So I think the legal problems for Donald Trump are mounting. It's a serious problem. And when we say a conviction, it's about, okay, a conviction of what, right? That's a very generic or general poll. And I think it's going to be, well, we've got 4 criminal cases. 3 of them are on election interference. So I think, what could be less American than that in terms of trying to interfere with an election? But we see it time and time again with Donald Trump. If he doesn't win, somehow the system is flawed against him.
If I may respond. I don't think it's the fact that the Republican base is disregarding the justice system or the rule of law. I think quite to the contrary. I think we're saying that the justice system no longer punishes criminals and no longer protects innocent. And I think that the FBI and the DOJ do have to be rehabbed. I think that there is significant issues that Democrats have weaponized the Department of Justice. You saw it with the Russia collusion hoax. You see it with these court cases in Georgia and New York. And so I think that we're not disregarding it. We're saying we need to rehabilitate these institutions that have lost so much trust in this country over the last few years with their lawfare, with their hoaxes. And I think that is one of the cornerstone issues that I think Donald Trump's running on in 2024.
This has been a very good discussion, one that's needed, and we really appreciate everybody joining us. Jason, we know you have to take off. We really appreciate being here. We're going to have more from David when we come back, but first we're going to toss it over to Dave at the Data Hub for an update.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome back. We've got some early voting data in. Let's take a look at some of these counties. And we're going to start with Richland County right here in the center. Trump actually lost this county in 2016, one of 2 he lost.
Jason's good to take off, yeah.
Let's take a look at this one here. Richland County, 17% of the votes in. Donald Trump, 35%. Nikki Haley, 64%. She's got like a 2,000 vote lead here with 17% of the votes in. Now let's take a look at the other county Trump won. Now this Richland is the 2nd most populous county. Charleston is the 3rd most populous county. Let's look at this. 27% of the votes are in. Donald Trump, 36%. Nikki Haley, 64%. Wow, she's got a 6,000 vote lead there. Those are 2 big ones. Those are the 2 that he lost in 2016. He's losing again today. Let's look at another one though. This is the 4th biggest county. This is Horry County. Less than 1% of the votes are in. Donald Trump, 66%. Nikki Haley, 34%. Let's take a look at another big Trump win over here though. This is Marlborough County. 1/3 of the votes are in. You've got Donald Trump, 78%. Nikki Haley, 22%, a big lead there. We've also got another one here. Let's look at Chesterfield County. Just over half the votes have been in Donald Trump. 78%, Nikki Haley 22%. Oh, look at that, Ron DeSantis got 10 votes. Chris Christie got 4. Let's take a look at Greenville. This is the most populous county in South Carolina. Wow, less than 1% of the votes are in. But Donald Trump 72% here, Nikki Haley 27%. Now I'd like to take a look at where Clemson University is, because Trump hasn't really done as well in college towns as Nikki Haley has done, hence he's losing this. This is Anderson County. This is where Clemson University is. It actually goes on to Pickens County as well. 3.5% of the votes are in. Donald Trump, 70%. Nikki Haley, 30%. Let's also look at Pickens County right above it, because Clemson really borders those 2 counties. 1/4 of the votes in. Donald Trump, 65%. Nikki Haley, 34%. So we've got a big lead in all of those. Let's take a look at another one up here, though. Chesterfield County. You know what? I'm sorry, I already did that one. Let's look at York County, where Rock Hill is. Donald Trump, 52%, slight lead over Nikki Haley, 48%. As you can see, Ron DeSantis actually got 43 votes here. In any case, we'll continue to monitor these two counties that Nikki Haley's got big leads in, but for right now, let's go back to the desk.
And we're back in studio. Joining us now is Chris Beers, our own NTD political correspondent. And we also have David Carlucci, Democratic strategist. So Trump's come up with a lot of creative ways, Chris, for getting around censorship and reaching out to new audiences, making his own social media app, Truth Social, doing interviews with podcasters that he otherwise may not have if he wasn't censored. Some of these podcasts are even giving Trump a channel to younger audiences and younger voters. Here's a clip of Trump's interview with the Full Send podcast last year, which got nearly 9 million views.
I think Trump's about to walk in, so we gotta go, boys.
Oh, they're not gonna cut you again. They're not gonna cut you again. They don't have the courage to do that. Coming to the speech, I'm making a speech in a little while.
Are you?
As soon as I'm finished with you.
Oh my God, we have to go for sure.
Then the easy work starts.
Exactly.
The speech.
No, we were saying last time we had you on, it's a great honor to have you back. We really
That's
appreciate it. Last time we had you on, it was our biggest episode ever, obviously. 7 million views in 24 hours. It was crushing, going viral. I feel like you did such a good job too. Like everybody loved it on both sides, and then YouTube took it down.
So, Chris, President Biden's also doing interviews with podcasters of various, places and demographics. Not as frequently as Trump, but he's had one recently with Conan O'Brien. Going forward, how important do you think it will be for Trump and others running for office to kind of ride this wave of alternative media?
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I mean, you have the mainstream media outlets losing viewers, losing employees recently. And younger generations aren't watching TV the way older generations are, the way we used to. So you have to tap into these other outlets, like that group that he was just with. Those guys actually watched that full interview a while back. Those guys, you see them beforehand. They crack a few beers. They talk about how nervous they are. It's like super behind the scenes and personable, reaching out to a totally different kind of person than an older voter who remembers an era where there was a certain level of decorum. Tapping into these younger generations.
Now, given that this is South Carolina, Nikki Haley's home state, I want to touch back on base with Nikki Haley now. Before this primary, she's been really using the last few days to further the contrast between her and former President Trump. She's been really trying to sell herself as the only candidate who can unite Americans. Now, Robin Byro, he's a Democratic strategist. He said that Joe Biden was supposed to be that kumbaya candidate to come in and unite everyone. We didn't really see that happen. It seems it became more progressive almost under his administration. That's what a lot of reports are saying. Now, could Nikki Haley actually take away Democrats from Biden in the general election if she stays in?
I don't see that. I know the polls are showing that she's a stronger candidate than Donald Trump against Joe Biden. But I think that's under the noise that we're in right now. When you really peel back and you look at Nikki Haley's record and what she's standing for, it's in direct contrast to Democrats. And even though they're saying it might appeal, it's appealing because of the chaos around Donald Trump. And that's what Haley's been hitting on, right? That under Donald Trump, we have just chaotic. We don't know what's going to happen next. He shoots from the hip, shoots first, asks questions later. And that type of style of politics might be attractive to some, but it's also very nerve-wracking to so many. So I think, yes, those polls, I can appreciate them, but I think they start to change if the microscope is just on Nikki Haley, Donald Trump is out of the picture, and it's Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden. You really start to see Nikki Haley's record. And I think most obvious to this is the recent Alabama case where you have IVF and Nikki Haley taking really the extreme narrative on that issue, and Donald Trump kind of looking more like a moderate and saying, I support IVF and allowing and not being so strict on abortion. I think Donald Trump has that lane already, being the guy that appointed the Supreme Court justices to overturn Roe. But Haley to come out with that stance just recently and having such a hard line on abortion is something I think Republicans really want to avoid heading into the general election.
And here we are now. Donald Trump has won the South Carolina primary. On the screen here, you could see Nikki Haley's watch party. We're going to be keeping a very close eye as soon as she comes out. We're expecting her to give a speech. I think it will be kind of interesting to see what she says, David. What type of tone and tenor do you see her taking?
I think she's going to say, like she said before, look, you know, the election is today, but we've got a series of elections. She's going to reiterate what her campaign put out, a memo recently, talking about how 11 of the next 15 primary states are open or semi-open primaries where she does better. Because you have independents, Democrats, moderates being able to participate and not that just hard line Republican vote, which traditionally is who would win the primaries. So I think she's going to take that tone that, look, it's actually a win. She's going to say, look, you know, they counted me out. They said it was going to be a total blowout. Here we have a former president, and I'm coming in striking distance. I mean, right now we see she's about 12 points behind Donald Trump. We don't know if that's going to hold, but if it does, then that is a good night for Nikki Haley. Not, you know, a perfect night, not the night, of course, she would want to win and get those delegates, but it does keep her on the map. It does keep her on the path forward to try to get delegates in Michigan and the following states.
Now, when it comes to that contrast, whether it's Nikki Haley and Trump, Biden has been doing something similar. He's been really pushing the issue of democracy being on the line. I know you've done some research on this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, like I was saying before, Biden made this front and center in his campaign. He was in his first campaign speech of 2024 on January 5th, right before January 6th. He talked about democracy and how it's at stake. You know, saying this election is a choice between Trump and democracy. And of course, this is something that Trump says as well about Biden. You know, this back and forth. And we heard it in the last election, but it seems like the stakes are significantly higher now because Donald Trump didn't have 4 indictments in the last election. He didn't have 91 criminal charges. So things are a little more hot, and it almost seems like things are more about democracy now.
On that note, it also seems President Biden has gotten into some rough waters, especially with the Israel-Hamas war, when it comes to the support of younger Americans. We've been seeing all these protests across the nation. He joined TikTok recently in a bid to get to those younger voters. Some are saying that could just make him seem older, or it could really help when it comes to election time. He also did just forgive $1.2 billion in student loan, another aspect that could be buying votes potentially, or really just tapping into that younger base. What do you see as some of the challenges President Biden is facing?
Yeah, with this TikTok move, it's almost like he's in a tough position and he's taking drastic measures. I mean, you have these polls, New York Times, NBC, USA Today, other polls, talking about how he's losing favor with younger voters 18 to 35. And again, those people are concerned, these polls are saying those people are most concerned about his stance on the Israel-Hamas war. You know, and these people they're not out there about to go vote for Donald Trump, but he's in this situation where these voters could end up staying home on election night because they're not enthusiastic about either of these two candidates. Another thing here about these polls that I just mentioned is that Trump is actually leading in some of them in the 18 to 35 demographic. So as far as his move with TikTok goes, the question is, does it even matter? Because to younger voters, they're not concerned about whether or not Joe Biden is on TikTok. They're concerned about his stance on the Israel-Hamas war.
David, to Chris's point, you know, former President Trump he's shocking people in a lot of polls right now. You're seeing him with the African American vote, with the young vote here. Some people even saying that he might even be in play right now with such a drastic switch in New York State, a state that you're familiar with. Should the Democrats be concerned?
Well, of course, Democrats need to be concerned and take these polls seriously. It is a snapshot of the current electorate. It's not a prediction of what's going to happen, but we need to use these polls as a warning sign to the point about young voters starting to be less enthusiastic. Same with black voters. The fact that they're showing that there's less enthusiasm, but the polls are also showing that those votes are not necessarily going to Donald Trump. He hasn't actually improved his stance in some of those demographics, but it is a lack of enthusiasm for Joe Biden. And I think to the point about TikTok, Joe Biden has quite a few accomplishments that when people know about them, they're very excited about, but it's getting that information to them, right? The traditional media that we grew up with, that's not the same, right? And you get these TikTok messages, 20-second clip, people regurgitating a different point of view, talking about what they think, and that's what a lot of people are getting their news from. They don't know about the CHIPS Act. They don't know about the Inflation Reduction Act. They don't really understand that. The student debt, do they recognize $138 billion of student debt has been eliminated? And I don't think that is a buy-off of voters. Joe Biden stated it clearly when he was running in 2020 that this was a priority of his and he was going to get it done. Did he get every dollar of debt wiped out? No, but $138 billion is a big, big deal, and it's a lot further than any other president has gone. And to Joe Biden's credit, I mean, he's not just talked the talk, he's walked the walk. Now, can we message that, communicate that, and drive that home to voters? I hope so. But the point that I really wanted to make is Donald Trump is all about blame. He's put blame in a bottle and sold it, right? And that's his political tool. It's worked well, but it can only go so far. It's one political tool. It's not the only tool, but now I see the GOP just using that tool of blame exclusively.
David, another thing that a lot of people probably aren't familiar with is the fact that TikTok is a Chinese cyber weapon. President Biden is familiar with that. He knows that. He's banned it on federal government devices. But yet, during the Super Bowl, he launched a campaign using that app. Is that sending mixed messages, and could that come back to bite him?
I don't think that angle. I think it's you got to use the tools that are available. I don't think it's saying that he endorses it, but he's saying, look, there's millions of eyeballs that are watching this, millions of voters. If I'm not there, someone else is going to be filling that void, so he's got to do it. There's all these different tactics that are going to be used, right? Digital, mail, canvassers, the list goes on and on. What is going to make the difference? We never know. So political campaigns have to do it all. It's just a matter of where are you going to put the most resources. But I imagine that we're going to see more resources spent on new types of media than we've ever seen before.
Chris, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, there's just so many different types of media now, and now with artificial intelligence, you see Ron DeSantis' campaign making up AI images of Donald Trump. People are trying to reach all kinds of people in new ways, and it's not just the technology that's diversifying, it's the people themselves because of technology. I mean, it gives us all kinds of ways to see all kinds of new things, that whatever we want to see, really, and the voter base is constantly changing because of that.
And I think to that point, the campaigns, the GOP and the Democratic campaigns are recognizing that it's so polarizing now, so hard to get a message out, that the testimonials have always been important, but they're more important than ever. If we could get an influencer to endorse one of the candidates, that's a real home run in this campaign. Always been important, but now with this influencer culture that we have, to get people to endorse a candidate and be that testimonial is more important than ever.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary because in one sense, it doesn't matter who you are if you're an influencer. You just have an audience. It doesn't matter what you're saying. Those people could say anything, and they know how to target and speak to specifically their audience.
Let's pivot right now and talk about the immigration crisis. Right now, it's the single biggest issue for voters. You saw in the Senate a border bill failing, which forced the White House to pivot themselves. We're going to pull up some sound. President Biden taking up a new strategy about how he's talking about the border. Let's take a look.
But if the bill fails, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The American people are going to know why it failed. I'll be taking this issue to the country. And the voters are going to know that it's not just a moment, just at the moment, we're going to secure the border and fund these other programs. Trump and the MAGA Republicans said no, because they're afraid of Donald Trump. Afraid of Donald Trump. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump.
So, David, it appears as though President Biden's strategy is to blame Trump. However, you have to look back at Trump's policies. Remain in Mexico, border wall, significantly less illegal border crossings. How long can President Biden sustain his campaign by blaming somebody who's not even in office?
Well, because Donald Trump is responsible for the fact that congressional Republicans have refused to do anything on the border, on immigration. We all know that the immigration policies in effect in the United States are long overdue for reform, but they've been such a political football that nobody's want to touch them. It's been the politics of blame each side, but I think Joe Biden has a great point right now. Donald Trump has given the issue away. The fact that you're going to elect anyone to Congress for immigration or really from any issue is really kind of ridiculous. What we see right now is a total bend the knee, bow down to Donald Trump. It's his way or the highway. There's almost no reason to have a Congress, to have a legislative branch, according to this philosophy. Donald Trump said, don't do a border bill because I want to keep that issue on the minds of people so that I can run for president. I mean, it was so crass and so selfish to do that, but congressional Republicans have listened. And so it's taken the issue off the table, unfortunately, because something needs to get done. And the Remain in Mexico, Title 42, these are policies that that Joe Biden kept in place when he was president to the ear of Democrats on the left. He was forced to do Title 42 by the court. And also now you have, oh, well, we don't need legislation. It can be done by executive order. Well, that's not true because executive orders by both Donald Trump and Joe Biden were stymied by the court. And this idea that that Donald Trump had the best, most secure border we've ever had. I mean, it's just such nonsense and such a fallacy that it's not about the president. It's about the policies and the circumstances going on around the world. And the idea, people are coming to this country. It's a matter of how they get in. They're either going to smuggle themselves across the border or they're going to try to come in legally. But people don't travel thousands of miles and then say, oh, well, that policy is right or not. They're fleeing. They're in a desperate situation. And the United States is a beacon, as it has been around the world. And we're just kind of poo-pooing that and saying we shouldn't have immigrants into our country. Under this idea, we wouldn't have any immigrants. And that's the quickest way to disaster. Our economy depends on a legal immigration policy. That's what's built us into the strongest economy in the world.
On illegal.
Because of
not illegal.
Legal immigration. But under Donald Trump's policies, it's forcing people to become illegal immigrants. No legal immigration policy. That's the problem. These immigration policies are long overdue for reform. They need to be brought into the 21st century. I think a glaring statistic is the fact that in the last census, the 2020 census showed that we had the lowest net migration into the United States since the 1930s, since the Great Depression. That's a big problem. We need immigration. It's got to be done correctly.
Chris, when it comes to executive action, President Biden, as soon as taking office, rolled back many of former President Trump's executive orders protecting the border. Now we're starting to see a slight pivot, with Remain in Mexico and others. What do you think is going to take for the border to get secure?
Yeah, one of the things, just to comment on what Dave was saying, that is not being talked about, but it almost like it's so obvious for so many people. Basically, before President Biden took office, you have about 500,000 people on average coming across the border, getting apprehended by Border Patrol for the decade before. And then after he gets elected, there's about 2.2 million per year apprehensions. So I think this is what former President Trump is speaking to in his, frankly, like you said, command over the party. What's going to change things? I mean, all the border hawks that I talk to talk about basically going back to former President Trump's policies, having a more strict policy of deportation, and people talking about the sanctuary city policies across the country. In New York, you have Mayor Eric Adams estimating that they're going to spend about $12 billion in total by 2035 on housing and funding and feeding illegal immigrants in the city. So people are heavily attracted to cities like New York City and Los Angeles from all around the world. And so those kinds of policies are a huge draw. So some kind of change would have to be necessary there.
And to Chris's point, David, politics aside, the border crisis is not sustainable. You have blue cities, Eric Adams, Chicago, many others that just they can't take it. And a big part of it, one might argue, is the messaging. And the message is out there that as long as these kind of soft on border policies are in place, deportations, remain in Mexico and the like, people are just going to keep flowing in.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't think people leave their home in El Salvador or wherever it is because they said, oh, look, I could maybe do well in Los Angeles or New York City. It's because they're fleeing desperate situations. And that's what we have to remember as a nation of immigrants, that this isn't because of necessarily our policies. Yes, we are an attractive place to live, and we should never lose that. We need to be that beacon of hope from around the world. People are going to come to our borders. It's about how they come in, either illegally or legally. That's not going to change.
But let's unpack that
and
desperate
then,
situation.
if we're going to do something sustainable, that's on the feet of Republicans. They have Congress right now. If I'm not mistaken, Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House. He has maybe the votes, he should, to do something on the border. What have they done? Nothing. They're saying, oh, you know what? We don't need to do anything sustainable. We just need the president to do an executive order. Well, we know that's not going to work. Maybe it'll do a little something here or there. We've already seen the court say, no, you can't do that. You need to change this because the system is broken, and it takes two to tango. We need Congress and we need the executive to work together. We finally have that. And then what happens? Donald Trump comes in and puts his thumb on it and says, no, don't do it. Why? Who knows?
Speaking of the system, let's unpack. You mentioned desperate situations. You have situations where people come from communist China to flee persecution. You have situations in Venezuela where the government is cracking down in Cuba. These are all things that we want to make sure are open, but there's a lot of people that also take advantage of those situations. Many of them are also economic migrants. So how are we able to decipher what is what?
Well, we do have a policy that if you're fleeing from a communist country, you have special privileges that are not entitled to other nations. That's a long-standing policy where if you're coming from Cuba or another country that is of a communist country, if you make it to the United States, you have protections, right? Same with Haiti. We have the HRIFA Act under Bill Clinton to allow for people to come to the United States, a different process. But we haven't made any innovations in this, to your point. Yeah, if you're fleeing political persecution or you're fleeing violence, yeah, there's a different standard. But I mean, Donald Trump wants to do things like end birthright citizenship. For what reason? It's a political talking point, and I think it excites people. It gets them upset and nervous for no reason. It's almost like this attack on immigrants, which is wrong. And we need to have a thorough legal immigration process, right? This way we can focus, right? We can give our border agents the resources they need. That's another thing. I mean, they're talking about running out of funding to actually detain people that have been apprehended. Why? Because of Congress's inaction. They're supposed to have another $7 billion going to the border. And what's happening? Congress isn't able to do their job and they can't get it done. And that's at the foot of Republican leadership. So yes, this situation is not sustainable, and not one president is going to be able to fix it alone. It's going to be president working with Congress to have a comprehensive immigration policy reform so that we can actually have a solid legal immigration policy.
This is a great discussion. We're going to continue in just a moment. Right now, our NTD's Iris Tao is still in South Carolina at President Trump's watch party there. We're going to check in with her. Iris, what's going on the ground there?
right? Oh, actually, not much anymore, Steve. As we can see, actually, the room is being cleared out. Some supporters are still mingling right here at the watch party, but as we know, Trump declared his victory just minutes after polls are closed, and that win was very quick, even quicker than what was seen in Iowa and New Hampshire. And we talked to Congresswoman Nancy Mace just now about that early victory and what that means for the race going forward. Let's take a look. So first, Congresswoman Mace, what's your reaction to a super fast victory tonight?
Another state, another historic victory for Donald Trump. And when you do the delegate math, when you start adding it up, there is no path for victory for Nikki Haley. It's time to rally around the presumptive nominee. That's Donald Trump. We got to take on Joe Biden in the White House and talk about all the bad things he's done to destroy our country, starting tonight.
But Nikki Haley's campaign is vowing to pour resources into Super Tuesday states after this. What's your thoughts on that? Why?
Well, the math doesn't add up. Donald Trump's going to win every state in every primary, and we need to stop taking shots at him and start rallying around him and take on Joe Biden. We got to take on border security, illegal immigration, inflation, spending, the economy, jobs, women's issues. That's a big issue that's going to be coming up in November. We've got to be taking all of that on and show how bad Joe Biden is for the country.
And President Trump was talking about how the GOP is showing unity it has never seen before. But by Nikki Haley staying in the race, do you think that's going to impact the unity within the Republican Party?
Well, she's propped up by Democrat money and Democrat votes. I mean, and so when we're talking about massive historic support for Donald Trump, what he says is true.
And lastly, based on the results tonight, what's your prediction of how things are going to go in November?
Well, I believe that Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden, and that's all that matters. And we need to rally behind him. We need to donate to his campaign. We need to get on the ground, go door to door, phone bank, text our friends, get everybody to turn out for him in November so we can win our country back.
Congressman, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was good to see you again.
Speech at her own watch party, also in South Carolina. We've seen reports about the room being half full, about a few hundred people right there at her watch party, and some of them still chanting Nikki Haley's name, despite, of course, the quick defeat for Nikki Haley tonight. And our sister media, the Epoch Times, talked to Haley's campaign. We just got another confirmation that Nikki Haley is not dropping out even after today's another defeat. Nikki Haley's campaign is saying that she's going to be in Michigan on Sunday, continuing to campaign. And right now, as we see on her website, that's the case for 6:30 p.m. on Sunday in Michigan. So let's see what happens next as this race gets even, of course, more clear. Back to you.
TD's Iris Tao. We appreciate that report from South Carolina. And back to our in-studio guest, David Carlucci, Democratic strategist, Chris Beers, NTD's political correspondent, of course, co-host Tiffany Meier. It's great to have everybody back here. So, David, right now, we'll pull up the numbers here. Trump is up 59% to 40 with, what do we have with the vote in here?
34%.
34% of the votes still coming in. What do you make of this margin, David, roughly 20% in Nikki Haley's own backyard?
Well, I think it's an issue. Yes, she was former governor, but we have a former president. Right? I think the president trumps, not to play on words, the governor. And he's got a loyal base. There's no question about it. I think this speaks to the fact this is not about Nikki Haley. This is all about Donald Trump. And you got 40% of people voting in a Republican primary. You already had 130,000 Democrats vote in the primary on February 3rd. That means they can't vote in this primary, of which Joe Biden won 96% of the vote, running against a sitting congressman, Dean Phillips, who was actively campaigning. He got 96% of the vote. Here we have a former president only right now getting 59% of the vote. Yeah, in any other election, I'd say, yeah, it's a crushing defeat, pack up, go home. But that's not how this works. It's a race to the delegates. This is 44 delegates or 50 delegates to be won tonight. And you got 1,215 more to go. He's winning by about 18%. So yeah, it's a big number, but not as big as everyone is making it to be, that it's a crushing blow to Nikki Haley. Look, I mean, if I were Donald Trump, I would be very concerned. I think he is, that you have this group of Americans that will never support Donald Trump. And I think it's got to be a warning sign to Republicans that, I mean, I know they're just going in lockstep and bowing down to Donald Trump and trying to defend and backtrack on everything to keep up with what Donald Trump says, particularly the congresswoman who was just on, who's had to do amazing backflips to keep up and stay in line with Donald Trump. The GOP's got to be very concerned. You got 40% of people saying, no, we don't want this guy. And that's in your own primary.
On that note, what do you make of the slew of endorsements Trump has been getting, especially in South Carolina, say Senator Tim Scott, even the governor, against Nikki Haley, who was governor there and quite popular during her time? What do you make of that?
Well, I think Nikki Haley was there in the rise of the Tea Party, right, and this more right-wing group, and that has morphed into the MAGA movement, right? So that Donald Trump is like the real deal with that. So I don't think that's too much credence to pay attention to. But the fact is that yes, you have all of these politicians that are so afraid of Donald Trump. You have Tim Scott. I mean, he was running against Donald Trump. He was made a senator by Nikki Haley. I mean, this guy is like flip-flopping all over the place, has no loyalty. I mean, even Donald Trump was kind of embarrassing him on the election stage when he said, oh, you don't even like Nikki Haley, and he had to come up and say, oh, well, it's because I love you. I mean, Donald Trump signaled, hey, Tim Scott, you're a loser, you're not going to be my VP, but thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to use you like I'm using all these other people. I think there's going to be people when the party's over and they start to sober up, I think they're going to be like, wow, what did we do? And the people that are left standing are going to be the ones that really try to distance themselves from Donald Trump and this train wreck, I think, of a candidacy that he has going into the general. We could criticize Biden all day long. People do that a lot. But then you look at what is Donald Trump going to do? And he does well when it's about pointing the finger. That's what Donald Trump does. If we watch closely, anytime he doesn't get his way, it's not because of him. I mean, according to what I've read, Donald Trump has never made a mistake. He has never made a mistake. If it's always someone else's fault. The legal system, oh, someone's corrupt. We've got the DOJ, they're corrupt. The FBI, they're corrupt. In Iowa, when he lost the Iowa caucus back in 2016, if you look at the notes, you look at the archive, he was calling for election fraud then. We didn't pay attention to it much because we moved on and he kind of moved on as well. But every time he loses, it's never his fault. It's someone else rigging the system. And I'm just saying, when are we going to wake up to this and recognize, yeah, Donald Trump has some good characteristics, but he's got a lot of bad characteristics, and he's always looking out for himself as opposed to all of us. And that's the biggest problem, I think, and that's going to catch up to him by the time we get to November.
Quite fascinating indeed, and we are still waiting on Nikki Haley to speak, but first we're going to take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere.
Beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen Yun.
These kids grow so fast. Cherish every little moment you get with them. Tyler, he's 10, and little Daryl, he's 12. Being a single dad, it is hard, really hard. I've been there since day one. I know how it is, not to have nothing. I don't really get paid much. There's been times I went hungry, made sure they ate. There ain't a thing I wouldn't do for them.
Millions of our neighbors are facing hunger. Rising food prices are making...
I was in the United States Marine Corps. Pretty much destroyed my back. I couldn't walk. 6 days after surgery, I was back in the gym, and everybody was in awe. Like, didn't you just get out of surgery? I'm like, yeah, I feel great. I was rolling with everybody, and I'm in the advanced class.
We're back to the Nation Decides 2024 at NTD. And Nikki Haley is taking the stage.
Really? I hope my mic was cut.
I love that about you. Thank you.
obviously thanking my family. I am so incredibly blessed. I was able to speak with Michael this morning. His support has been amazing. The kids have really stepped up, sometimes too much, but they have stepped up in a way that has made me so, so proud. I am blessed because I had the ability to actually go vote today with my mom. You know, and there's something very special with the fact that she was a lawyer in India and she was named one of the first female judges. And because of the times, she was never able to sit on the bench. But the fact that she could go with me and cast her ballot for her daughter as President of the United States was an amazing. I want to thank my parents who taught me strength and grace. I want to thank Michael's parents who have been unbelievably supportive through all of this. And I want to thank my brothers and my sister and their families for always supporting us every step of the way. Thank you. I feel blessed tonight. I've felt blessed through this entire journey. Even when it's been tough, I haven't lost sight of that. I've felt God's strength and grace every step of the way. I'm blessed to have served the state that raised me. And I look forward to continuing to be blessed to serve the state that raised me, whether it's going and voting with my mom or whether it is being with our family. We're very grateful for the good people of South Carolina. Thank you. And it's a blessing to know that across our sweet state, everyone wants to bring back the America we know and love. That's the underlying message of what happened today. I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory. And I want to thank the people of South Carolina for using the power of your voice. No matter the results, I love the people of our state. I love what we accomplished together, and I love how we united during our worst challenges and tragedies. I've always seen our state as a family. Families are honest with each other. They say the hard truths. That's what I've done this entire campaign. And that's what I'll do now. What I saw today was South Carolina's frustration with our country's direction. I've seen that same frustration nationwide. I share it. I feel it to my core. I couldn't be more worried about America. It seems like our country is falling apart. But here's the thing. America will come apart if we make the wrong choices. This has never been about me or my political future. We need to beat Joe Biden in November. I don't believe Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden. Nearly every day, Trump drives people away, including with his comments just yesterday. Today in South Carolina, we're getting around 40% of the vote. That's about what we got in New Hampshire, too. I'm going to count it. I know 40% is not 50%. But I also know 40% is not some tiny group. There are huge numbers of voters in our Republican primaries who are saying they want an alternative. I said earlier this week that no matter what happens in South Carolina, I would continue to run for president. I'm a woman of my word. I'm not giving up this fight when a majority of Americans disapprove of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. South Carolina has spoken. We're the fourth state to do so. In the next 10 days, another 21 states and territories will speak. They have the right to a real choice. Not a Soviet-style election with only one candidate. And I have a duty to give them that choice. We can't afford 4 more years of Biden's failures or Trump's lack of focus. We're at $34 trillion in debt and counting. Not even a third of our 8th graders are proficient in reading. Families can't afford groceries. 9 million illegals have come to our border with enough fentanyl to kill every single American. And beyond our borders, the world is on fire. War is spreading further every day. If we aren't strong, those wars will draw America further in. And it's not just about policies. We won't get out of our downward spiral if we keep obsessing over the past. Does anyone seriously think Joe Biden or Donald Trump will unite our country to solve our problems? One of them calls his fellow Americans fascists. The other calls his fellow Americans vermin. They aren't fighting for our country's future. They're demanding we fight each other. The younger generation, my children's generation, knows it better than anyone. They deserve better. They deserve leadership. And so I will keep fighting for them and for you and for all of America. From the start of this campaign, I have made clear that I'm running for president to save America. I'm running to remind us what it means to be an American. In the America I know and love, we believe in each other. And we believe in America's inherent goodness. Now is the time to renew that belief. Now is the time to remember who we are. We're citizens of the greatest country in human history. Now more than ever before. I'm grateful to South Carolina. I always have been and I always will be. And I'm grateful that today is not the end of our story. We're headed to Michigan tomorrow. headed to the Super Tuesday states throughout all of next week. We'll keep fighting for America, and we won't rest until America wins. I want to give a few thank yous because we have had some people who've really, there have been too many to thank, but I really have to single out Congressman Ralph Norman. Ralph has had pressure on him from every side that he needed to not support me and that he needed to step away from me. And he always said, there's no way in hell. I want to thank Senator Tom Davis, Representative Nathan Ballantyne, and Representative Mike Neese, who were there. We had other supporters, but they were constantly there. Tom, you've been there from the very beginning. Nathan, you'll forever be my desk mate. Mike, I won't know what to do if I don't see you at an event, but I am truly, truly grateful. Solicitors Scarlett Wilson and Duffy Stone, amazing rock stars for our state that we should all be proud of. Mayor Brenda Bethune really stepped up. The mayor of Myrtle Beach, she was absolutely fantastic. Former Congressman Gresham Barrett. You know, the story behind me and Gresham is we duked it out in our first primary when I ran for governor. And to have him call me and say, not only do I want to help you, I will do whatever you need me to do. Gresham, thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the text. Thank you for the encouragement. I am grateful for that. And everybody needs a friend like Bubba Cromer. When you have a friend who was one of the first ones to greet me when I joined the House of Representatives, and when everybody wasn't nice and they gave me a hard time, Bubba would always compliment my outfit. And to have you show up and go to every event and print thousands of letters and stuff mailboxes and do the things you didn't have to do. We all love you. Thank you. And to my women for Nikki. Nikki chapters in every state in this country. And if you want to talk about a force, don't mess with the women in America. Thank you for the support, the encouragement, the love, everything that you've given. Thank you, South Carolina. Thank you to everybody who's been here today. Onward. Thank you. God bless you.
I think it's. Oh.
And here we are, Nikki Haley coming out. You know, her speech, it seemed a little bit conciliatory in the beginning. The mood was down. We were all kind of wondering and waiting, could there be a suspension of a campaign? But no, she's doubling down onto Super Tuesday. Chris, what were some of your big takeaways?
Yeah, you know, she said, you know, I don't believe that Trump and Biden can, you know, lead this country in the proper direction. She said 40% is not great. It's not 50%, but it's not the 33%, the 2-to-1 loss she was expecting there. She had this sort of back and forth with her audience. I think it was really a tight-knit group there. You could hear she would say a sentence and then get a cheer, and then say another sentence and get another cheer. And she spoke to how, one president, Biden, calls people fascists in the country, and she mentioned how former President Trump has referred to some as vermin, and she says, we don't need this kind of back and forth anymore. We believe in America's inherent goodness, trying to draw on people's better nature, almost like Dean Phillips, the Democratic candidate.
She was really focusing on that message of unity, speaking of frustration, not just in South Carolina, but across America, saying how she is fighting for all Americans. Given one of our earlier discussion about President Biden losing some support among the Democratic Party, especially among, say, Black Americans or Hispanics when it comes to the economy and the border, what does President Biden need to do to get that turnout when it does come to November?
Well, a big part of it is just scaring the hell out of people that we might have another 4 years of Donald Trump, and that's enough to say, don't matter what I look like, I could be not even breathing, but we want to get you out and vote against Donald Trump. That's one thing, right? And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but a little bit of seriousness as well, that there's nothing that can motivate Democrats more than the threat of 4 years of Donald Trump. With that said, I think Nikki Haley does something that helps Biden in a way, in terms of she's saying, look, Biden and Trump are the same, right? And this is something I've been saying, that I think the Republicans have to be very careful in terms of the way that they attack Joe Biden. Because yes, it might feel good to attack him on the mental acuity piece and all that, but Donald Trump's not too far behind, right? He's only 3.5 years younger than Joe Biden. If we analyze his speeches, he makes at least a couple gaffes in his speeches. Yes, they might be longer. He might be more energetic than Joe Biden, but he's making those mistakes as well. And so the problem is they're kind of nullifying each other, right? They're neutralizing each other in terms of, hey, we're both old. We're both almost 80. We're both going to be the oldest presidents ever, either one of us. So Nikki Haley can take that lane.
I would have to jump in there on that particular point. You don't see former President Trump looking for which direction to lead the stage. We've seen numerous accounts of President Biden finishing up a speech and then an aide coming up to him and saying, oh, got to go this way. And he sort of needs that help, which speaks to a certain level of senility, as many pundits have spoken about.
But I would ask, what does that matter, right? That it's it's optics, right?
He's the leader of the free world.
Right, and the fact is, right, he's the leader of the free world, and so we're going to take this superficial stuff of saying, hey, it's very objective in terms of, or subjective, I should say, in terms of...
Yeah, but that's not superficial. It does speak to that sort of superficial action does speak to a deeper inner problem in someone's cognitive capabilities.
And so the same we can say about Donald Trump when he confused Nikki Haley and Speaker Pelosi, and he has this ongoing conversation. He does that a lot. And what I'm getting at is we could take 15 seconds of him maybe looking like he doesn't know which way to exit the stage. But meanwhile, he's passed the CHIPS Act. He's actually made a major dent against inflation. That's a global issue. Republicans want to say, oh, it was caused by Joe Biden. I think the American people and every economist knows that's just not true. How does Joe Biden, by passing the Inflation Reduction Act or the CHIPS Act or the infrastructure bill, how does that lead to global inflation? Inflation in India, China, and the UK? No, because it's a global issue. And so he's actually made amazing strides towards pushing back against that global inflation, to the fact that we have lowest unemployment rate we've ever had on record, highest stock market we've ever had, but Republicans still want to say, oh, but he doesn't know how to exit the stage. So I think that's an issue that just, it goes so far. It might be political catnip for some, but at the end of the day, the fact that he's actually delivering results, that's going to be the thing that matters, right? The show me, don't tell me. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is telling. And even things like the border wall, right? What was Donald Trump's pitch? Build the wall, build the wall. That wall's still not built. And in fact, Biden has actually spent money in trying to build and secure pieces of the border to say where we actually need a physical border. But the thing that Donald Trump was most known for, he didn't deliver on.
Well, I think we all respect the office and respect the anybody who holds that office. But when it comes to an isolated incident or not, I think that it's fair to say there are far more cases of just simply not knowing how to get off stage for President Biden. With that said, we will be right back here. But first, we're gonna toss it over to Dave at the Data Hub for another update. Dave?
Thank you, Steve. Welcome back. We got some more voting data in here. Let's take a look at some of these. Let's take a look at a couple of Nikki Haley wins, or leads, I should say. This is Richland County. This is a county that Trump lost narrowly in 2016 by maybe 4% to Rubio. Look at this. A little over half the votes are in. Nikki Haley, 59%. Donald Trump, 40%. This is the second most populous county in the state. Let's also look here at Charleston, another loss for Trump in 2016. He's losing here again, too. 64% of the votes are in. Nikki Haley, 62%. Donald Trump, 37%. Now, let's see, as you'll notice on this map, though, there's a lot of orange or shades of orange. These are all Trump leads. There's 46 counties. He's got a lead in 42 of them. Haley is leading in 3, essentially. 2 of those that I just shown you, we don't have any data for this one. So obviously that shows why they've already called this for Trump. Anyway, that's it for me at the Data Hub. Back to you guys at the desk.
Dave Martin doing an excellent job keeping us updated with all the data as it's been coming in all night. Thank you, Dave. Right now, Iris Tao is still at the Trump watch party in South Carolina. Iris Tao, break it down for us.
Right. Sure. So it's, as you can see, it's pretty much emptied up here. It was an early party for sure for tonight's early victory. And we have heard both Trump and Haley now already looking forward to the next states coming up for their primaries. Next up, we have Michigan on February 27th, and then Michigan's Republican caucus March 2nd, and then District of Columbia March 3rd, and North Dakota on March 4th. And right now, we've heard both candidates already looking beyond today's victory, but also Trump has already been talking about a November general election, so a lot to watch for in the coming days and weeks, as we have heard from Nikki Haley just now that she's not dropping out, at least not for now. So let's see what happens right next after tonight's very early victory here. Steve.
Iris Tao, great job out there keeping us updated from the Trump watch party all night. And back in studio with our guests, Dave Carlucci, Chris Beers. As we wrap up tonight, Chris, final thoughts on the evening?
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me about Nikki Haley is that she was, of course, the second GOP candidate to announce in the primary here. She started in the single digits, and her entire campaign was, relatively low until the tail end in the past couple of months, where she reached about 19%, trailing DeSantis by just a few percent in Iowa. So she was kind of on this upward swing. And if you compare that to DeSantis, ever since he announced, he was on this downward swing, I think, which speaks to why he got out of the race in Iowa. But Haley kept going. And Haley's campaign speech, while it did start out with that lower energy, kind of teasing us with a possible concession, she really picked it up in the middle and kind of left people with a little more, at least her audience, with a little more hope. And I think, again, that speaks to this sort of upward trend in her campaign. Again, she outperformed expectations in New Hampshire, outperforming expectations, it looks like, here in South Carolina as well.
Dave?
Yeah, well, I got to say, it's been a lot of fun to be commentating with you guys tonight and jockeying and talking about these issues. And I think the main point here is, yes, I think Nikki Haley, she laid out in her concession speech a pathway forward, right? Why is she going to stay in it? There's been a lot of talk about that. And she said, look, it's up to me to allow voters to have that choice. Other than that, I think this is all about Donald Trump, right? It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about Nikki Haley. It's really about Donald Trump. And there's so much that excites people to Donald Trump, but there's so much that repels people from Donald Trump. And it's going to be very interesting to see, as we head into Michigan and then Super Tuesday, what Donald Trump does, what he says. But if he continues these lines about it's all about him and everything is about him and how people are trying to bring him down and less about what he's going to do for America and the people of our country, I think that's a big problem. But I think this is all about you either love Trump or you hate him. And I think that's what this primary showed tonight, with 40% of the electorate saying, hey, we're really not sure about Donald Trump. I think that shows that Donald Trump has a ceiling, and he might have hit that, and that'll be a problem for the general election.
Well, this does conclude our special coverage tonight. We just want to thank Dave. Your perspective is appreciated. Chris Beers, as always, great to have you.
And that does conclude our night. It's been great having you with us. We'll be covering more of this election cycle here on The Nation Decides 2024.
I'm Steve Lance.
And I'm Tiffany Meier.
Until next time, have a great night.